Tonight, we're going to explore something that will transform how you think about humanity's journey beyond Earth. We're going to discover the peaceful, awe-inspiring, and profoundly calming aspects of space travel. Not the dangerous missions you might have heard about, but the serene, beautiful, transformative experiences that astronauts cherish. By the end of this journey, you're going to understand why venturing into the cosmos can be one of the most peaceful experiences a human being can have. Before we begin, if you enjoy these deep explorations of space and the mysteries of our universe, a quick like or subscribe would really help the channel grow. Now let's begin our journey into the peaceful realm beyond our atmosphere. The Star Sailors. A journey begins. Let's start with something simple yet profound. The word astronaut comes from ancient Greek. Astron means star, and nautes means sailor. Star sailor. Think about that for a moment. These explorers aren't just pilots or scientists. They're sailors navigating an ocean of stars, drifting through cosmic currents, charting courses through the infinite void. It's a beautifully poetic description for what these remarkable people do. But the term astronaut isn't the only name for space travelers. Russian space explorers are called cosmonauts, from cosmos meaning universe, and nautes meaning sailor. Universe sailors. Chinese space explorers are called taikonauts, blending the Chinese word for space with that same Greek word for sailor. Each culture has embraced this maritime metaphor, recognizing that space travel is fundamentally about exploration, about setting sail for distant shores, about the human spirit yearning to see what lies beyond the horizon. The first person to earn the title of astronaut in America was Alan Shepard, who rocketed into space on May 5th, 1961. His flight lasted just 15 minutes and 28 seconds. He didn't orbit Earth. He simply went up and came back down. But in those precious minutes, Shepard saw something no American had seen before. He saw Earth's curve against the blackness of space. He saw the thin blue line of our atmosphere. He experienced weightlessness. And when he returned, he was forever changed. Before Shepard, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space on April 12, 1961, spending 108 minutes in orbit. Gagarin famously said, "The Earth is blue. How wonderful. It is amazing." Those simple words captured something profound. From space, our world looks different. It looks peaceful. It looks unified. It looks precious. Since those early days, over 600 people from more than 40 countries have traveled to space. Each one has experienced something that fewer than 0.001% of all humans who have ever lived will experience. They've seen Earth from a perspective that transforms how they understand their place in the universe. They floated in microgravity, experiencing a freedom of movement impossible on Earth's surface. They've looked out windows and seen the Milky Way stretching across the sky with a clarity that takes your breath away. They've watched the sun rise and set 16 times in a single 24-hour period. They've lived among the stars. And here's something truly remarkable. Despite all the challenges, all the risks, all the years of training and sacrifice required to reach space, astronauts almost universally describe the experience as peaceful. They talk about the profound calm they feel floating in orbit. They describe the meditative quality of looking down at Earth. They speak of a deep sense of connection with all humanity, a feeling of unity that transcends national boundaries and cultural differences. Space travel, for all its technical complexity, offers something deeply simple and deeply human: perspective, peace, and a profound sense of wonder. The overview effect, seeing Earth. Anew, there's a phenomenon that occurs when humans see Earth from space. It's not a physical change, though there are plenty of those. It's a cognitive shift, a transformation in how astronauts perceive our planet and their place on it. In 1987, space philosopher and author Frank White gave this phenomenon a name, the overview effect. The overview effect is characterized by several common elements. First, there's an overwhelming sense of awe. Astronauts report being utterly stunned by the beauty of Earth seen from space. They describe colors more vivid than anything they'd imagined. The blues of the oceans are impossibly deep and rich. The whites of clouds glow with an ethereal quality. The greens and browns of continents shimmer with life. And all of it is set against the absolute blackness of space, a darkness so complete it makes Earth seem to glow like a precious jewel suspended in an infinite void. Second, there's a powerful emotional response. Many astronauts cry the first time they see Earth from space. Not tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming emotion. It's too beautiful, too profound, too perfect. Retired NASA astronaut T.J. Creamer described bringing crew members into the cupola, the International Space Station's observation module, with its 7 windows looking down at Earth. In that instant, when you're overwhelmed with that vista, when your eyes see nothing but the beauty of the Earth, he said, every single crew member that I brought in for that exposure cried. It is heart-stopping. It is soul-pounding. It is breathtaking. If you think about that, highly trained pilots, engineers, scientists, people selected for their emotional stability and ability to remain calm under pressure, brought to tears by the simple act of looking out a window. That's the power of the overview effect. Third, astronauts experience what researchers describe as self-transcendent qualities. They report feeling connected not just to their families or their nations, but to all of humanity. National borders disappear when you're looking at Earth from 250 miles up. You can't see the lines we've drawn to separate ourselves. You see one planet, one atmosphere, one interconnected biosphere. Former NASA astronaut Bob Behnken described it this way. You see that it's a single planet with a shared atmosphere. It's our shared place in this universe. I think that perspective, as we go through things like the pandemic, or we see the challenges across our nation or across the world, we recognize that we all face them together. The overview effect also changes how astronauts think about Earth's fragility. From space, our atmosphere looks paper thin. It's a delicate blue shell surrounding the planet, and beyond it is nothing but the deadly void. There's no backup. There's no safety net. We live on this one planet, protected by this one thin layer of air, and that's it. Many astronauts return from space with a heightened sense of environmental concern. Retired NASA astronaut Mike Foreman put it simply. I think if you're not a conservationist, before you go to space, you're at least partly a conservationist when you come back. Because when you see how thin that atmosphere is, that protective layer that we have here, you think, wow, we really have to take care of this because it does look so fragile from space. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania have studied the overview effect scientifically. They analyzed accounts from astronauts all over the world who documented their experiences viewing Earth from space. Common themes emerged: unity, vastness, connectedness, perception of beauty, and overwhelming emotion. The researchers characterized the effect as a state of awe with self-transcendent qualities, precipitated by a particularly striking visual stimulus. Awe is a fascinating emotion. It's what we feel when confronted with something vast, something that challenges our usual frameworks of understanding. Watching a spectacular sunset can trigger awe. Standing at the Grand Canyon's edge can trigger awe. Listening to a powerful piece of music can trigger awe. But the overview effect represents awe on an entirely different scale. You're not just seeing something beautiful or impressive. You're seeing the entire world, everything you've ever known, everyone you've ever loved, all of human history, all contained on that one beautiful blue sphere, floating in infinite darkness. Some astronauts have compared the experience to spiritual or religious feelings, though the overview effect occurs in a highly scientific, secular environment. Edgar Mitchell, who walked on the moon during Apollo 14, described experiencing a profound sense of universal connectedness. He said he felt he was part of something larger than himself, part of the cosmos itself. He founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences after returning from space, dedicating himself to exploring consciousness and human potential. Other astronauts have channeled their experiences into art, into environmental activism, into education, into helping others understand what they saw and felt among the stars. NASA astronaut Nicole Stott became an artist after returning from space. She paints what she saw, trying to capture that ineffable beauty, that profound sense of connection. Apollo 12 astronaut Alan Bean also became a painter, creating works that depicted the lunar surface and Earth as seen from the moon. These astronauts recognized that words alone couldn't convey what they experienced. They needed color, form, visual language to communicate the transformative nature of seeing Earth from space. The overview effect isn't limited to professional astronauts. As commercial space travel becomes more accessible, ordinary people, though there really are no ordinary people, may have opportunities to experience this cognitive shift. Blue Origin, SpaceX, and Virgin Galactic are all working to make space travel available to more people. While these flights are currently expensive and limited to those with significant resources, the trajectory suggests that more people could see Earth from space in the coming years. More people may experience that profound shift in perspective. And if more people return with that heightened sense of unity and environmental concern, this could potentially influence how we treat our planet and each other. Interestingly, researchers have tried to recreate the overview effect here on Earth using virtual reality. Immersive VR simulations can provide a surprisingly powerful approximation of seeing Earth from space. While not as profound as actually being there, these simulations have shown measurable effects on participants' environmental attitudes and sense of connectedness. The Infinite, an hour-long VR experience using 360-degree footage recorded by astronauts on the International Space Station, has allowed thousands of people to glimpse what it's like to float in orbit and look down at our world. There's also what researcher Dina Weibel calls the ultraview effect, a response to seeing stars without Earth's atmospheric interference. While the overview effect responds to seeing Earth from space, the ultraview effect responds to seeing the universe from space. Astronauts report being overwhelmed by the sheer number of stars visible. In orbit with no atmosphere to scatter light, no light pollution to wash out fainter stars, the cosmos reveals itself in stunning detail. The Milky Way becomes a river of light stretching across the sky. Stars fill every corner of the visible universe, and astronauts report feeling small, humbled, aware of their place in something incomprehensibly vast and ancient. Both effects, seeing Earth's beauty and seeing the universe's vastness, contribute to the transformative nature of space travel. You come back different. You come back with a broader perspective. You come back understanding that we're all in this together, floating on a fragile blue marble through infinite space, sharing one atmosphere, one home, one destiny. And that realization, far from being frightening or overwhelming, is actually deeply peaceful. It's clarifying. It strips away the petty concerns and artificial divisions we create and reveals what really matters: connection, beauty, unity, and taking care of the precious planet that is our only home. Life among the stars, the International Space Station. Let's venture now to humanity's home, away from home, the International Space Station. The ISS orbits Earth at an altitude of roughly 250 miles, completing a full orbit every 90 minutes. That means the astronauts aboard see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every 24 hours. Imagine that. Every 45 minutes, the sun appears on the horizon, floods the station with light, arcs across the sky, and sets again. Then darkness, then another sunrise, then another sunset. This rapid cycling continues endlessly, day after day, creating a rhythm unlike anything experienced on Earth's surface. The station itself is massive. It's 356 feet long, about the length of an American football field, including the end zones. It has an internal pressurized volume of 32,333 cubic feet, equivalent to the interior space of nearly 8 semi-trailer trucks. But it's not one giant open space. The ISS consists of multiple modules connected together, creating a complex of living quarters, laboratories, storage areas, and docking ports. Living space is actually larger than a 6-bedroom house, with 6 sleeping quarters, 2 bathrooms, a gym, and the cupola. That magnificent observation module, with its panoramic windows. Life aboard the ISS follows a carefully structured routine. Astronauts wake, exercise, eat, work, and sleep on a schedule designed to maintain circadian rhythms despite the confusing light-dark cycle outside. To help with this, the station's lighting system operates on a 24-hour cycle. Lights are turned to full brightness for about 16 hours, simulating daylight. Then they're dimmed for 8 to 9 hours, creating an artificial night to help crew members sleep. Window shades can be closed to block out the actual sunrises and sunsets occurring every 45 minutes. But even with shades closed and lights dimmed, sleeping in space takes some getting used to. There's no gravity pulling you down onto a mattress. You can't lie in bed the way you do on Earth. Instead, astronauts crawl into sleeping bags attached to the cabin walls. They float inside these bags, often securing themselves with straps to avoid drifting around. Some astronauts describe it as incredibly peaceful. You're not putting pressure on any part of your body. You're not lying on your side, with your arm under you or on your back, feeling the mattress. You're simply floating, completely relaxed, suspended in perfect balance. Some astronauts report sleeping better in space than they ever did on Earth. Exercise is mandatory aboard the ISS, and astronauts spend about 2 hours every day working out. This isn't optional. In microgravity, muscles don't have to work against gravity's constant pull, so they begin to atrophy. Bones stop being stressed, so they begin to lose density. To combat these effects, astronauts use specialized exercise equipment and designed for use in weightlessness. There's a treadmill, but you have to strap yourself to it with bungee cords to keep from floating away while you run. There's a stationary bicycle. There's a resistance exercise device that simulates weight training. All of this equipment is carefully engineered to work in an environment where nothing weighs anything. Recently, researchers have been exploring whether virtual reality can make exercise more enjoyable for astronauts. A collaborative study tested whether a VR environment for the exercise bicycle increases motivation and provides a better experience during those multi-hour training sessions. Imagine pedaling a bike while a VR headset transports you to a forest trail on Earth, or through an alien landscape, or along a mountain path. It makes the monotony of daily exercise more engaging, more pleasant, more meditative. Eating in space is fascinating. Early space food was famously unappealing. Squeeze tubes and compressed cubes, it tasted like cardboard. But food technology has advanced dramatically. Today's astronauts eat a wide variety of foods. Some are dehydrated and require adding water. Some are thermostabilized and packaged in pouches. There are even canned goods available. Each international partner contributing to the ISS provides their own food supply to be shared among everyone on board, creating a diverse menu. Russian cosmonauts bring borscht and honey cake. Japanese astronauts bring ramen and rice dishes. American astronauts bring everything from macaroni and cheese to shrimp cocktail. Eating itself is different in microgravity. Food doesn't stay on a plate. Crumbs don't fall to the floor. They float around, potentially clogging air filters or getting into equipment. So astronauts eat carefully, slowly, one item at a time. Tortillas are preferred over bread because they produce fewer crumbs. Liquids behave strangely, forming floating spheres instead of pouring. Drinks come in pouches with straws. Water doesn't flow down your throat when you swallow. You have to actively push it down with your throat muscles. It takes longer to eat a meal in space, but that's okay. Mealtime becomes a chance to slow down, to gather with crewmates, to enjoy food and conversation while floating together in the module. Water is precious aboard the ISS. Launching water from Earth is expensive and heavy, so the station recycles almost everything. The station's environmental control and life support system is remarkably efficient. Moisture from the cabin air is condensed and captured. Urine is purified through a complex filtration process. All of this water is recycled into drinking water that's often cleaner than what comes from many taps on Earth. Astronauts joke about drinking. Yesterday's coffee today, but the reality is less gross than it sounds. The purification system is so thorough that the water is essentially pure H2O. Bathing in space presents unique challenges. There are no showers or bathtubs on the ISS. Instead, astronauts give themselves sponge baths using wetted towels and pouches of rinseless soap and shampoo. Water is carefully applied to the skin, soap is worked in, and then everything is wiped away with towels. The whole process conserves water while keeping astronauts clean and comfortable. Using the bathroom in space requires special equipment and technique. Toilets on the ISS use suction instead of water. For solid waste, astronauts position themselves over a small opening, much smaller than a regular toilet, so aim is important. and suction pulls everything into a sealed container. For liquid waste, a hose with a funnel attachment is used, again with suction doing the work gravity normally would. The waste is eventually jettisoned from the station in a cargo vehicle, and it burns up as it re-enters Earth's atmosphere. NASA actually has a training toilet with a camera underneath it, so astronauts can practice their positioning. It's not glamorous, but it works. Haircuts happen on the ISS too. Astronauts use electric clippers attached to a vacuum cleaner. The vacuum sucks up every hair as it's cut, preventing loose hairs from floating around and clogging filters. Everything has to be thought through carefully in an environment where things don't fall, where air doesn't naturally circulate, where the normal rules of living don't apply. Despite all these adaptations, astronauts report feeling remarkably comfortable aboard the ISS. The station becomes home. After the initial adjustment period, usually about 6 weeks, astronauts adapt to the environment and begin to thrive. They establish routines. They personalize their sleeping quarters with family photos and mementos from Earth. They look forward to daily video, calls with loved ones. They enjoy the incredible views out the windows. They take pride in the work they are doing, conducting experiments that can only be performed in microgravity, maintaining the station, contributing to humanity's understanding of how to live and work in space. And there's a sense of peace that comes from being so far removed from Earth's concerns. Political tensions, traffic jams, bills, daily stresses, all of it feels distant and unimportant when you're floating 250 miles above the planet, traveling at 5 miles per second, watching continents slide by beneath you. Astronauts report feeling incredibly present, incredibly mindful. They're focused on the moment, on the beauty around them, on the essential nature of their work. It's a kind of enforced meditation, a removal from the chaos of ordinary life that allows for clarity and calm. The international cooperation aboard the ISS is also remarkable. Crew members from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds live and work together in extremely close quarters for months at a time. They speak different languages, celebrate different traditions, come from different political systems, but none of that matters up there. They're all astronauts. They're all human beings sharing an extraordinary experience. They learn Russian. They learn English. They learn to communicate across cultural divides. They celebrate each other's birthdays and holidays. They support each other through challenges. They become, in the truest sense, a family. Russian cosmonaut Valery Polyakov holds the record for the longest single space flight, spending 437 days and 18 hours aboard the Mir space station from January 1994 to March 1995. That's nearly 15 months continuously in space. The longest spaceflight by a woman is 328 days, achieved by NASA astronaut Christina Koch from March 2019 to February 2020. Frank Rubio holds the NASA record for the longest single mission aboard the ISS at 371 days, ending in September 2023. These extended missions demonstrate that humans can indeed adapt to long-term living in space. The ISS becomes not just a workplace, but a true home, and astronauts on these extended missions report finding deep satisfaction and peace in the rhythms of orbital life. The gentle metamorphosis. Your body in space. Let's explore something truly fascinating. What happens to the human body in microgravity? And here's the beautiful thing. Many of these changes are gentle, temporary, and actually quite comfortable once you adapt to them. Space isn't just a place you visit. It's an environment that transforms you physically and mentally in ways both profound and peaceful. First, there's the most immediately noticeable change. You grow taller. Not a lot, but measurably. In microgravity, your spine isn't compressed by gravity's constant downward pull. The fluid-filled discs between your vertebrae expand slightly. Your muscles and ligaments relax. You can grow up to 3% taller while in space. For an average height person, that's 1 to 2 inches. Astronauts sometimes joke about gaining height without exercise or stretching. It's effortless. You just float there, and your body naturally extends to its full potential length. This height gain is temporary. When astronauts return to Earth and gravity reasserts itself, the spine compresses again, and they return to their normal height within a few months. But while it lasts, it's a unique and somewhat amusing change. Astronauts have to adjust to their new proportions. Space suits fitted on Earth might feel slightly different. Reaching for things requires recalibrating how long your arms feel. It's a gentle reminder that you're living in a fundamentally different environment. Then there's the fluid shift. On Earth, gravity pulls blood and other fluids toward your lower body. Your heart works to pump blood upward to your brain. Blood pools slightly in your legs, but in microgravity, fluids redistribute evenly throughout your body. More blood flows to your head and torso. Less blood stays in your legs. This creates what astronauts call puffy face syndrome and bird leg syndrome. Their faces look slightly swollen. Their legs look thinner. Some astronauts say they feel like they have a perpetual head cold for the first few days in space, stuffed up and congested because of the fluid shift. This fluid redistribution also affects the heart. On Earth, your heart has to work against gravity, pumping blood upward. In space, that work isn't necessary. Studies have found that astronauts' hearts become slightly more spherical in shape during long missions. The heart doesn't have to maintain the elongated, elliptical shape it develops on Earth to efficiently pump against gravity. This change is temporary, and the heart returns to its normal shape after returning to Earth. But it demonstrates how profoundly every system in your body is adapted to living in gravity's constant embrace. Bones experience perhaps the most significant changes during long-duration spaceflight. On Earth, bones are constantly stressed by bearing your body's weight. Walk, run, jump, even just stand, and your bones are working. This stress signals bone cells to maintain density and strength. In microgravity, that stress disappears. Bones begin to lose density, particularly in the legs, pelvis, and spine. The rate of bone loss is significant, about 1 to 2% per month in weight-bearing bones during the first few months in space. This is why exercise is so crucial. Astronauts use resistance machines and bungee cord systems to create artificial loading on their bones. They spend 2 hours every day exercising specifically to slow bone and muscle loss. While exercise doesn't completely prevent these changes, it significantly reduces them. And when astronauts return to Earth, bones gradually rebuild density, though it can take months to fully recover. Muscles face similar challenges. Without gravity to resist, muscles don't need to work as hard for everyday tasks. You don't need strong legs to walk if you're not walking. You don't need core strength to sit upright if there's no upright. Muscles begin to atrophy, particularly in the legs and back. Again, exercise helps. The resistance machines aboard the ISS allow astronauts to work their muscles, maintaining strength and mass. Many astronauts maintain surprisingly good physical condition even after months in space, though returning to Earth gravity still feels heavy at first. Your sense of balance, controlled by the vestibular system in your inner ear, also adapts to microgravity. On Earth, tiny hair cells in fluid-filled chambers in your ears sense which way is down, how your head is oriented, whether you're moving or still. In space, there is no down. The fluid in those chambers doesn't settle in one direction. For the first few days in space, many astronauts experience space adaptation syndrome, commonly called space sickness. They feel nauseated, disoriented, sometimes vomit. It's like motion sickness, but caused by the absence of motion cues their brains expect. Interestingly, this adaptation is usually quick. Within a few days, the brain recalibrates. It learns to ignore signals from the vestibular system and rely more on visual and proprioceptive information. The nausea passes. Astronauts begin to feel comfortable floating, spinning, moving in 3 dimensions. They adapt to having no fixed sense of up or down. This neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to new environments, is remarkable. Your brain literally changes how it processes spatial information to accommodate microgravity. When astronauts return to Earth, they have to adapt again. Gravity feels heavy at first. Their inner ears have to recalibrate to Earth's gravitational pull. Some astronauts experience dizziness and balance problems for days or even weeks after landing, but eventually the brain adapts back and normal balance returns. Your immune system also responds to spaceflight. Research suggests that the stress of living in space, combined with the isolation, confinement, and exposure to cosmic radiation, can temporarily reduce immune function. Astronauts are more susceptible to reactivation of dormant viruses like herpes simplex. The station is kept meticulously clean to minimize exposure to pathogens, and astronauts are carefully screened for illness before launch. But the immune changes remind us that space is a stressful environment, even when it feels peaceful. Vision changes are another interesting adaptation. Many astronauts experience slight shifts in their vision during long missions. The increased pressure of fluids around the brain can press on the optic nerve, slightly flattening the eyeball and changing how light focuses. Some astronauts become slightly more farsighted. These changes are usually mild and often resolve after returning to Earth, but they're being carefully studied to ensure the safety of future long-duration missions to Mars and beyond. There are some delightful quirks too. Your calluses change. On Earth, you develop thick skin on the bottoms of your feet from walking. In space, you don't walk. The calluses on your feet soften and eventually slough off, leaving your soles as soft as a baby's. Meanwhile, you develop calluses and rough skin on the tops of your feet because you use them to grip foot rails and push yourself around the station. Astronaut Scott Kelly described this change, noting how strange it felt to have baby-soft soles but alligator-tough tops. Your face looks different too, not just puffy from fluid shift, but actually different in subtle ways. Photographs of astronauts in space show rounded faces, slightly swollen features. It's not usually uncomfortable. Most astronauts describe just feeling a bit full in the head, but it's noticeable. Family members watching video calls from space often comment on how different their astronaut loved ones look. sleep patterns can change. Some astronauts report sleeping better in space than on Earth. The absence of gravity means no pressure points, no uncomfortable positions, just floating peacefully in your sleeping bag. Others struggle with the frequent light dark cycles, the unfamiliar sounds of the station, the knowledge that they're hurtling through space at incredible speeds. Sleep quality varies from person to person, but NASA pays careful attention to crew rest, ensuring astronauts get adequate sleep to maintain health and performance. Despite all these changes, astronauts consistently report feeling good in space. After the initial adaptation period, most describe feeling healthy, comfortable, even exhilarated by the experience. The human body is remarkably adaptable. Give it a few weeks in a new environment, and it figures out how to function. Bones and muscles need exercise to stay strong. The inner ear needs time to recalibrate. The immune system needs support. But with proper countermeasures and care, the human body can thrive in microgravity. And when astronauts return to Earth, their bodies adapt back. Bones rebuild density, muscles regain strength. The heart returns to its elongated shape. Balance stabilizes. Within 6 months to a year, most physical changes have reversed. The body remembers how to live in gravity because it's been doing so for your entire life before spaceflight. Space changes you, but it doesn't break you. It shows you what your body can do, how adaptable you are, how resilient human physiology can be when faced with completely new circumstances. This resilience gives us confidence for the future. If we can adapt to living in orbit around Earth, we can adapt to living on the moon. We can adapt to living on Mars. We can learn to thrive anywhere we choose to go, as long as we understand our bodies, support their needs, and give them time to adjust. The gentle metamorphosis that occurs in space isn't something to fear. It's something to celebrate, evidence of our species' incredible capacity for adaptation and survival. The perfect silence, the beauty of the void. Space is silent, completely, absolutely, perfectly silent. On Earth, we're surrounded by sound every moment of our lives. Wind rustles leaves, cars rumble past, people talk, music plays. Even in the quietest room, you can hear your own heartbeat, your own breathing. But space is a vacuum. There's no air, no medium for sound waves to travel through. If you were somehow outside the International Space Station without a helmet, you could scream as loud as you possibly could, and you would hear nothing. The sound waves would leave your mouth and immediately dissipate into nothingness. Silence so complete it's almost unimaginable. Inside the ISS, of course, there is air, so there is sound. The station hums with the sounds of fans, pumps, electronics, air circulation systems. It's actually quite loud. Astronauts are continuously exposed to an average noise level of 72 decibels, equivalent to standing near highway traffic. This constant background noise can be fatiguing, which is why quiet time is built into schedules, why astronauts sometimes seek out the most isolated modules just to find a bit more peace. But that's inside. Outside, in the vacuum of space, there is perfect quiet. Astronauts who have performed spacewalks describe the silence as both peaceful and slightly eerie. Your spacesuit has fans and pumps, and a radio system, so you're never in complete silence. But if you turn off your radio for a moment, if you float there in the vastness, you experience something almost no human beings ever experience. True, absolute quiet. No wind, no distant traffic, no birds, no insects, no rustling of leaves, nothing. Just you, floating in infinite space, surrounded by perfect stillness. This silence emphasizes the visual beauty of space. Without sound to distract you, your full attention focuses on what you see. And what you see is breathtaking. Stars fill the sky in numbers impossible to comprehend. On Earth, even in the darkest locations far from city lights, Earth's atmosphere scatters some light, creating a subtle glow that washes out fainter stars. In space, there's no atmosphere. Every star shines with perfect clarity. You see thousands upon thousands of stars, more stars than you ever imagined existed, all blazing against the absolute blackness of space. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, so dense with stars it appears as a glowing band. Nebulae, vast clouds of gas and dust where stars are born, glow with ethereal colors. You can see structure in the Milky Way. See how our galaxy has spiral arms. See depth and three-dimensionality impossible to perceive from Earth's surface. It's overwhelming in the best possible way. You're seeing the universe as it truly is, unfiltered by atmosphere or light pollution, and it's more beautiful than anything you could have imagined. Then there's Earth itself. From the ISS, Earth dominates the view when you look down. It's huge, filling windows, displaying an ever-changing panorama of oceans, continents, weather systems, and light. During the day, you see incredible detail. Mountain ranges cast shadows, rivers snake through valleys, cities spread across landscapes. The Sahara Desert glows golden. The Amazon rainforest appears as a deep green expanse. The Great Barrier Reef shimmers turquoise against darker ocean blue. You can see individual cloud formations, watch thunderstorms develop, observe hurricanes swirling in organized spiral patterns. At night, Earth transforms. City lights twinkle like stars. Coastlines are traced in golden illumination. The brightest cities, Tokyo, New York, Cairo, Sao Paulo, create brilliant patches of light visible from orbit. You can follow highways by the streams of lights from cars. You can see fishing boats scattered across dark oceans, their lights marking humanity's presence, even in the most remote places. Lightning flashes inside storm clouds, creating silent fireworks. And then there are the sunrises and sunsets, 16 times every 24 hours. The sun rises on the horizon. First, a faint glow appears at Earth's edge. Then the glow intensifies, shifting through colors, deep purple, then blue, then green, then yellow, then brilliant white as the sun crests the horizon. The whole sequence takes only seconds. You're traveling so fast, orbiting at 5 miles per second, that sunrise happens in a flash. Then the sun is up, flooding everything with light. 45 minutes later, it sets again, sinking behind Earth's curve, the colors reversing, the glow fading, darkness returning. Then another sunrise, then another sunset, endless cycles of light and dark, each one beautiful, each one slightly different. Astronauts photograph these sunrises and sunsets obsessively. Former astronaut Don Petit took thousands of photographs from the ISS capturing sunrise after sunrise, each one unique. Different cloud patterns, different atmospheric conditions, different angles of light create infinite variations. Some sunrises glow orange and red. Others shimmer green and blue. Some are soft and diffuse. Others are sharp and brilliant. Petit described being mesmerized by the constant changes, by the beauty that never repeated exactly the same way twice. There's also the phenomenon of auroras seen from space. On Earth, auroras, the northern and southern lights, appear as shimmering curtains of light in the sky. usually green but sometimes red, purple, or blue. They're caused by charged particles from the sun interacting with Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere. From the ground, you look up at auroras. From space, you look down on them. And the view is spectacular. Astronauts see auroras as glowing ribbons draped across the planet, following magnetic field lines, shifting and dancing in silent waves. The colors are more intense, more pure. You can see the three-dimensional structure of the aurora, how it follows the curvature of Earth, how it extends hundreds of miles into space. It's a natural light show of staggering beauty. And from orbit, you have front row seats. Then there are atmospheric phenomena. Noctilucent clouds, incredibly high clouds composed of ice crystals that shine with a silvery blue glow, are visible from the ISS. These clouds form at the edge of space, about 50 miles up, far higher than normal clouds. They're so rare and so high that they're almost never seen from Earth's surface, but from orbit, astronauts observe them regularly, glowing against the dark limb of Earth like cosmic decorations. Meteors appear different from space too. On Earth, meteors are shooting stars, brief streaks of light as space rocks burn up in the atmosphere. From the ISS, astronauts can sometimes see meteors entering the atmosphere below them, burning up far beneath the station's altitude. It's a reminder that the ISS orbits in a very thin part of Earth's atmosphere, in a region where most objects would burn from friction. The station is moving so fast, over 17,500 miles per hour, that air friction would incinerate anything not protected by the station's structure. The silence and beauty of space create a contemplative environment. Without the constant noise and distraction of Earth, astronauts report spending long periods just looking out windows, watching the world turn, thinking, reflecting. It's meditative. The views never get old, but they do become familiar, and that familiarity brings a sense of peace. This is your home now, for these months in orbit. This is your daily view, this incredible, constantly changing panorama of planet and stars and light. Many astronauts describe space as the ultimate mindfulness experience. You can't rush in microgravity. You have to move deliberately, carefully. You have time to observe, to notice, to appreciate the silence, the beauty, the separation from Earth's hectic pace. All contribute to a sense of being fully present in each moment. You're not worrying about tomorrow's meeting or yesterday's mistakes. You're here, now, floating in space, watching Earth spin beneath you, witnessing beauty that few humans will ever see. And that presence, that complete engagement with the current moment, brings profound peace. The mind in orbit, psychological adaptation and growth. Let's explore something deeply personal. What happens to the mind in space? We've talked about physical changes, about the overview effect, about the beauty astronauts witness. But what about the psychological experience of living in orbit for months at a time? How do astronauts cope with isolation, confinement, separation from loved ones? And perhaps more interestingly, how do many of them not just cope, but actually thrive? First, it's important to acknowledge that space can be psychologically challenging. You're living in a confined environment roughly the size of a 6-bedroom house, and you can't leave. There are no walks in a park, no drives to clear your head, no spontaneous trips to visit friends. You're with the same small group of people 24 hours a day for months. If interpersonal conflicts arise, you can't escape them. If you're feeling lonely or homesick, you can't just go home. The door to Earth is sealed until your mission ends. Early in space psychology research, there were concerns about how astronauts would handle this isolation and confinement. Would they become depressed? Would they experience hallucinations, as sometimes happened in isolation experiments on Earth? Would the stress of spaceflight cause psychological breakdowns? These concerns led NASA to select astronauts with exceptional emotional stability, people who could remain calm under extreme pressure. The good news is that severe psychiatric problems during spaceflight have been rare. Most astronauts adapt well. The most common psychological challenges are adjustment reactions, temporary periods of anxiety or low mood, usually occurring early in a mission as astronauts adapt to their new environment. Some astronauts experience homesickness. Some feel overwhelmed by the responsibility of their work. Some struggle with the constant awareness that they're living in a hostile environment where a mistake could be fatal. But here's the fascinating part. Most astronauts adapt within 6 weeks. NASA psychiatrist Gary Bevan notes that astronauts and cosmonauts generally adjust to the environment after about a month and a half, and many actually want to stay longer once their missions end. They truly thrive in space. What starts as a challenging environment becomes home. What starts as stressful becomes routine. And the profound satisfaction of doing meaningful work in an extraordinary place outweighs the difficulties. Several factors help astronauts maintain good mental health in space. First, the work itself is engaging and purposeful. Astronauts aren't just floating around killing time. They're conducting cutting-edge scientific experiments, maintaining a complex space station, performing spacewalks, contributing to humanity's understanding of microgravity and space operations. They know their work matters. They know they're part of something historic and important. That sense of purpose provides deep satisfaction. Second, astronauts maintain strong connections to Earth. They can email family and friends. They can make phone calls. They can participate in video conferences. While there's sometimes a slight delay in communications due to signal travel time, conversations feel relatively natural. Astronauts can see their children's faces, talk with their spouses, stay connected to what's happening at home. This contact helps combat loneliness and maintains emotional bonds. Third, the crew becomes a close-knit family. Living in tight quarters for months creates strong relationships. Crew members learn to support each other, to recognize when someone is having a difficult day, to celebrate each other's successes, to work through conflicts constructively. They share meals together, exercise together, work together, relax together. International crews learn each other's languages and customs, creating a unique multicultural community. These bonds often last long after missions end. Fourth, there are built-in coping mechanisms and support systems. Astronauts can schedule private psychological consultations with therapists on Earth if needed. They're encouraged to maintain journals, which many find therapeutic. They can grow plants. The space station has a small greenhouse where astronauts cultivate vegetables. Research has found that growing fresh greens provides psychological benefits, offering a tangible reminder of life on Earth and giving astronauts something living to care for. There's also the cupola. That observation module with its panoramic windows serves not just scientific purposes, but psychological ones too. When astronauts feel stressed or overwhelmed, they can float to the cupola, open the window shutters, and look at Earth. The beauty has a calming, centering effect. It reminds them why they're there, what they're part of, how precious and extraordinary this experience is. Multiple astronauts have described the cupola as their favorite place on the station, a sanctuary where they can find peace and perspective. Some astronauts develop personal rituals and routines that help maintain mental well being. Regular exercise becomes not just physical maintenance, but mental health care too. The endorphins from working out help mood. The routine provides structure. Some astronauts meditate. Some read extensively. Ebooks and audiobooks are readily available. Some listen to music. Everyone finds what works for them. Interestingly, many astronauts report positive psychological changes from space flight. A survey of 39 astronauts and cosmonauts found that all respondents reported positive changes as a result of flying in space. They experienced heightened appreciation for Earth's beauty, greater sense of connection to humanity, increased environmental awareness, and deeper sense of purpose. These aren't just temporary feelings. Many astronauts carry these changes with them for the rest of their lives. Some describe experiencing personal growth and increased resilience. Living in space requires adaptability, problem solving, emotional regulation, and teamwork at levels most people never have to develop. Astronauts who successfully complete long missions often feel more confident in their abilities, more patient with challenges, more appreciative of what they have. Retired astronaut Marcia Ivins said that despite years of intense pressure during training and spaceflight, the experience overall is one of a mental high. The difficulty is part of what makes it rewarding. There is also a transcendent quality to the experience. You're doing something very few humans will ever do. You're living a dream. Yes, it's hard. Yes, there are moments of stress and homesickness, but you're also floating in space, looking down at Earth, working on the cutting edge of human exploration. That combination of difficulty and extraordinary experience creates profound meaning. For future long-duration missions, particularly potential voyages to Mars that could last 2 to 3 years, psychological preparation will likely become even more crucial. Mars missions would introduce new challenges. Communication with Earth would have significant delays, up to 20 minutes one way when Mars and Earth are at their farthest. That would make real-time conversations impossible. Astronauts would be truly on their own, unable to get immediate advice from mission control. Earth itself would eventually become too small to see clearly, just another bright point of light in the sky. NASA is actively researching how to support astronaut mental health on these future missions. They're running Earth-based analogs, simulated Mars missions in isolated environments to study how crews cope with extreme isolation and what interventions work best. They're developing technologies to help astronauts feel connected despite vast distances. They're refining crew selection and training to identify and prepare people who will thrive on these ultra-long duration missions. Some proposed solutions are practical: better communication technologies, artificial intelligence assistants to provide companionship, virtual reality systems that can simulate being in Earth environments. Other solutions focus on selection, choosing crews with complementary personalities, ensuring diversity of skills and perspectives, preparing people for the unique stresses of deep space exploration. But perhaps the most important factor is the fundamental human capacity for adaptation and growth. We've seen again and again that humans can adjust to extraordinary circumstances. We can find meaning in difficulty. We can create community in isolation. We can maintain hope in uncertainty. The astronauts currently living on the ISS prove this every day. They're thriving in an environment that would seem impossibly challenging to most people. They're doing it not through superhuman willpower, but through good preparation, strong support systems, meaningful work, and the profound rewards of the experience itself. Space doesn't break people psychologically. With proper support and preparation, it reveals their strength, their adaptability, their capacity for wonder and growth. The mind, like the body, adapts to space. And just as astronauts return physically changed, they return mentally transformed, often for the better, with broader perspectives, deeper appreciation, and renewed sense of purpose. The journey to the stars, training and preparation before anyone floats in the cupola, watching Earth turn beneath them before anyone experiences the overview effect or adapts to microgravity. There's a long journey of preparation. Let's explore what it takes to become an astronaut, because the path itself is part of what makes the experience so meaningful. It starts with selection. Becoming an astronaut is extraordinarily competitive. When NASA announced astronaut candidate openings in 2020, more than 12,000 people applied. From those thousands, NASA selected just 10 new candidates. That's a selection rate of less than 0.1%. It's harder to become a NASA astronaut than to get into the most elite universities. Space agencies around the world face similar ratios, but who applies? Astronaut candidates come from diverse backgrounds. Many are military pilots with thousands of hours flying high-performance aircraft. Others are scientists and engineers with advanced degrees and experience in fields like biology, physics, medicine, or robotics. Some are teachers, doctors, or researchers. The common threads are exceptional performance in their fields, extensive experience, and demonstrated ability to work well under pressure as part of a team. Physical requirements exist, but aren't as extreme as people often imagine. You don't have to be a super athlete. You do need to pass a long-duration spaceflight physical examination, which is thorough and demanding. Vision requirements have relaxed in recent years. Corrective lenses are acceptable. Height requirements ensure candidates can fit in spacecraft and spacesuits. Blood pressure, heart function, bone density, and overall health must be excellent because space places unusual stresses on the body. Psychological evaluation is extensive. Candidates undergo multiple psychiatric interviews. Evaluators look for emotional stability, ability to handle stress, capacity to live and work in confined spaces with small groups for extended periods, and adaptability to unexpected challenges. They even consider marital relationships, as stress on families can affect astronaut performance. The goal isn't to find people who never feel stress or fear. That would be superhuman and unrealistic. The goal is to find people who can manage stress constructively, who can work through fear, who can maintain performance even when conditions are difficult. Once selected, candidates begin about 2 years of basic training. This training is comprehensive and demanding. Candidates learn everything from spacecraft systems to orbital mechanics to Russian language to wilderness survival. They train in simulators, learning to operate spacecraft controls until every switch, every procedure, every emergency response becomes second nature. They study the systems aboard the ISS until they can troubleshoot problems and maintain equipment expertly. Physical conditioning continues throughout training. Candidates maintain peak fitness through regular exercise, swimming, running, strength training. They practice spacewalking in NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, a massive pool containing a full-scale mock-up of the ISS. Wearing spacesuits underwater approximates the feeling of microgravity, allowing astronauts to practice complex tasks while weightless. Two safety divers accompany each astronaut during these sessions, ready to assist if problems arise. Russian language training is mandatory for all ISS crew members. The Russian segment of the station has important systems, and all crews need to understand and operate this equipment. Communication with Russian cosmonauts requires language proficiency. Training manuals are in Russian, so candidates spend months learning Russian, often achieving conversational fluency. Some astronauts find this one of the most challenging parts of training. Learning a new language as an adult requires dedication and patience, but it's essential, and it builds bridges between cultures and space programs. Candidates also train in spacecraft that will carry them to orbit. They learn Soyuz spacecraft, the Russian vehicles that have reliably transported crew to the ISS for decades. They train in SpaceX Dragon capsules and Boeing Starliner spacecraft, the new American crew vehicles. They practice normal operations and emergency procedures. What if there's a pressure leak? What if communications fail? What if an engine malfunctions during launch? Astronauts must know how to respond instantly, correctly, under extreme stress. Survival training prepares candidates for worst-case scenarios. What if your spacecraft lands in the ocean far from the planned recovery zone? What if you land in a remote forest or desert? Astronauts train in winter survival, spending several days in frozen wilderness with minimal equipment, learning to build shelters, start fires, signal for help. They train in water survival, practicing getting out of a spacecraft that's landed in the ocean and staying alive until rescue arrives. Team training is emphasized throughout. Astronaut candidates work together on challenging tasks, learning to communicate clearly, support each other, trust their teammates' abilities. They're evaluated on how well they function as part of a crew, not just on individual skills. Space missions require teamwork at the highest level. Egos must be managed, conflicts must be resolved constructively. Everyone must pull their weight and support others when needed. Scientific training is also important. Astronauts will conduct research in orbit, often in fields outside their original expertise. A pilot might need to understand cell biology to conduct life science experiments. An engineer might need to learn materials science to study crystal formation in microgravity. Candidates receive broad scientific education, then specialized training in experiments they'll perform during their missions. After completing basic training, candidates become full astronauts eligible for assignment to missions, but training doesn't stop. When selected for a specific mission, astronauts undergo months of mission-specific training. They learn the experiments they'll conduct, the equipment they'll use, the timeline they'll follow. They practice their assigned spacewalks repeatedly in the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. They review procedures until they can perform complex tasks almost automatically, even while fatigued and stressed. They also train extensively with their crewmates, the specific people who will accompany them on their mission. This crew training builds cohesion and communication patterns. They learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, develop shared understanding of how they'll work together, establish routines and rhythms that will serve them well in orbit. By launch day, crew members know each other intimately, trust each other completely, function as a smooth, integrated team. The whole process from application to launch typically takes 3 to 4 years. Minimum, sometimes much longer. Many astronauts wait years between selection and their first flight. The training is deliberately thorough because the stakes are high. Mistakes in space can be fatal. Equipment failures must be managed correctly. Emergencies must be handled calmly and competently. The extensive preparation ensures that by the time astronauts launch, they're ready for whatever space might throw at them. But here's what's beautiful about this long preparation process. It's not just about making astronauts technically competent. It's about transformation. The years of training, the physical challenges, the mental demands, the teamwork, the dedication required, all of it shapes people. Astronauts emerge from training different than when they started, more capable, certainly, more knowledgeable, absolutely, but also more patient, more resilient, more appreciative of the opportunity they've been given. Many astronauts describe the training period as one of the most rewarding times of their lives. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's demanding, but they're working toward a dream. They're preparing for something extraordinary. They're surrounded by talented, dedicated people, all pursuing the same goal. There's a sense of shared purpose, of being part of something larger than themselves. The training itself becomes meaningful, not just a means to an end, but a valued experience. And when launch day finally arrives, when astronauts climb into their spacecraft and count down to liftoff, they're not afraid. They're ready. They've practiced every aspect of the flight thousands of times. They know their crew, their spacecraft, their mission inside and out. They're confident, not overconfident, but appropriately sure of their preparation and abilities. That confidence, earned through years of hard work, allows them to enjoy the experience rather than just surviving it. They can appreciate the beauty, the wonder, the profound privilege of traveling to space because they trust their training has prepared them for the challenges ahead. The road. Ahead, Artemis and the return to the moon. Let's turn our attention now to the future. Space exploration isn't just about what we've accomplished. It's about where we're going, what we're planning, what extraordinary journeys lie ahead. And right now, humanity is preparing to return to the moon and venture beyond in ways we've never attempted before. NASA's Artemis program represents the next chapter in human space exploration. The name Artemis comes from Greek mythology. Artemis was Apollo's twin sister, goddess of the moon and the hunt. The name symbolically connects to the Apollo program that first landed humans on the moon in 1969, while also representing a new beginning, a new generation of lunar exploration. Artemis has several ambitious goals. First, to land the first woman and the first person of color on the lunar surface. All 12 people who walked on the moon during Apollo were white men. Artemis will reflect the diversity of humanity, demonstrating that space exploration belongs to everyone, regardless of gender or race or nationality. Second, to establish a sustainable presence on and around the moon, not just visiting briefly, but creating infrastructure for long-term work. Third, to use the moon as a training ground and proving ground for eventual missions to Mars. The program has already completed its first major milestone. Artemis the Burr, an uncrewed test flight, launched in November 2022. The Space Launch System rocket, the most powerful rocket NASA has built since the Saturn V that carried Apollo astronauts, lifted off from Kennedy Space Center. The Orion spacecraft, designed to carry astronauts beyond low Earth orbit, flew to the Moon, entered lunar orbit, traveled farther from Earth than any spacecraft designed for humans has ever gone, and then returned safely to Earth. The mission tested all the systems needed for crewed flights, from launch through re-entry and splashdown. Artemis II, targeted for launch in February 2026, will be the first crewed mission of the program. 4 astronauts, NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, will venture around the Moon, the first humans to leave low Earth orbit in over 50 years. They won't land. Artemis II is a test flight designed to verify that all systems work correctly with crew aboard, that Orion can support humans safely on the journey to the Moon and back. The mission will last about 10 days. The crew will travel farther from Earth than any humans have traveled since Apollo 17 in 1972. Imagine what that will feel like. For 50 years, humans have been confined to low Earth orbit, circling our planet at an altitude of a few hundred miles. The International Space Station orbits at 250 miles. Even at that distance, Earth still dominates the view, huge and close. But Artemis II will take astronauts roughly 240,000 miles from Earth to the Moon and beyond. From that distance, Earth will appear as Apollo astronauts saw it, a beautiful blue marble suspended in space, small enough to cover with your thumb, yet containing everything and everyone you've ever known. The crew will see the Moon up close, passing within a few thousand miles of the lunar surface. They'll see craters, mountains, vast plains of ancient lava flows. They'll see the far side of the Moon, the hemisphere that never faces Earth, a landscape that has been photographed by robotic spacecraft but never seen directly by human eyes. They'll watch Earth rise above the Moon's horizon, just as the Apollo 8 crew did in 1968, witnessing the famous Earthrise that changed how humanity sees our world. Then comes Artemis III, currently planned for mid-2027. This will be the lunar landing mission. 4 astronauts will travel to the Moon aboard Orion. 2 of them will transfer to a human landing system, a special lunar lander built by SpaceX based on their Starship vehicle, and descend to the surface near the Moon's south pole. The other 2 astronauts will remain in lunar orbit aboard Orion. The South Pole is a fascinating target. It's a region never visited during Apollo. The sun hangs very low on the horizon there, creating areas of permanent shadow in deep craters. These permanently shadowed regions never see sunlight and are among the coldest places in the solar system, cold enough that water ice can exist for billions of years. Scientists have detected significant water ice deposits in these craters. Water is crucial for long-term lunar exploration. It can be broken down into hydrogen and oxygen, providing rocket propellant and breathable air. It can be purified for drinking. Finding and learning to use lunar water means future missions won't have to carry all their water and fuel from Earth, dramatically reducing costs and increasing mission capabilities. The 2 astronauts who land will spend almost a week on the surface, living in Starship, exploring the polar region, conducting scientific research, collecting samples. They'll perform multiple moonwalks, venturing out in new spacesuits designed specifically for lunar exploration. These suits are more flexible, more capable than Apollo-era suits, allowing astronauts to kneel, crouch, and move more naturally. They'll have better life support, better communications, better protection from lunar dust. What will it feel like to stand on the moon? Apollo astronauts described a landscape of stark beauty. The sky is completely black even during the day because there's no atmosphere to scatter sunlight. Stars are visible. Earth hangs in the sky, rotating slowly through its phases, sometimes a thin crescent, sometimes half illuminated, sometimes full, always blue and white and beautiful against the blackness. The ground is covered in fine dust, regolith created by billions of years of micrometeorite impacts. Every footprint you make will last for millions of years because there's no wind or water to erase it. The low gravity, 1/6 Earth's, allows for effortless movement once you adapt. You can jump meters into the air. You can carry heavy loads easily, but you have to move carefully because the spacesuit is bulky and the ground is uneven, scattered with rocks and pocked with craters. Apollo astronauts developed a distinctive hopping gait, more efficient than trying to walk normally. They described feeling like kids in a playground, delighted by the low gravity, sometimes doing flips and spins just for the joy of it. After Artemis III comes Artemis IV, planned for 2028. This mission will deliver the first elements of Gateway, a small space station that will orbit the moon. Gateway won't be as large as the ISS, but it's intended to serve as a staging point for lunar surface missions, a communications hub, a research platform, and in NASA's long-term vision, potentially a waypoint for missions to Mars. Astronauts will dock with Gateway, transfer to lunar landers, descend to the surface for days or weeks of work, then return to Gateway before heading home. The vision is for an ongoing presence at the moon, not one mission and done, like Apollo, but sustained exploration with missions launching every year or two. Different landing sites will be visited, studying diverse geological features, understanding the moon's history and resources. Over time, if the program continues as envisioned, semi-permanent habitats might be established on the surface, allowing crews to stay for months at a time. The moon could become a proving ground for technologies and techniques needed for Mars, from growing food in artificial environments to extracting water from local resources to building structures with lunar materials. All of this serves a larger purpose, preparing for Mars. The moon is a 3-day journey from Earth. If something goes wrong, you can get home relatively quickly. Mars is a 6 to 9 month journey away. Once you're there, you're staying for months or years, waiting for the planets to align properly for the return trip. You're on your own, with help from Earth delayed by tens of minutes. Due to the speed of light limit, everything must work. There's no room for critical failures. So we practice on the moon. We learn to live and work in hostile environments, far from Earth. We develop life support systems that can recycle air and water almost perfectly. We learn to extract resources from local materials. We test habitats, spacesuits, rovers, power systems. We train crews to handle emergencies without immediate support from Earth. We build confidence in our technologies and our abilities. And then if all goes according to current plans, perhaps in the 2030s or 2040s, we could be ready to take the next giant leap to Mars. Thinking about Mars missions brings a mix of excitement and serenity. Yes, the challenges are immense. The journey is long and dangerous. The environment is harsh, but humans have always explored. We've always ventured into the unknown, adapted to new environments, pushed the boundaries of what's possible. We explored Earth's every corner, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains to the frozen poles. Now we are extending that exploratory drive beyond our planet. It's natural, it's what we do, and there's something deeply peaceful about that continuity. Space exploration isn't a break from human nature, it's an expression of it. Every astronaut training for Artemis missions, everyone working on Gateway or lunar landers or Mars mission plans is part of this ancient human tradition of curiosity and exploration. They're continuing a story that began when the first humans looked at stars and wondered what they were, when the first explorers crossed oceans to discover new lands, when the first thinkers imagined that maybe someday we could travel beyond Earth. The future of space exploration isn't about escaping Earth or abandoning our home. It's about expanding our civilization while protecting our cradle, learning to live sustainably both on Earth and beyond, ensuring humanity's long-term survival while honoring the planet that gave us life. The astronauts who will walk on the moon in coming years, who will eventually travel to Mars, carry that responsibility. They're not just explorers, they're ambassadors for all of us, representing humanity's best qualities: courage, curiosity, cooperation, and care. One world, one people, the cosmic perspective. Let's return to something we touched on earlier and explore it more deeply: how space travel changes our understanding of ourselves, our world, and our place in the universe. Because beyond all the technical details, beyond the science and the engineering and the missions, space exploration ultimately comes down to something profoundly simple: perspective. When you're on Earth's surface, national borders feel real and important. We organize ourselves into countries with distinct boundaries, governments, laws, cultures. We identify strongly with our nations. We feel pride in our nationalities. We sometimes see people from other countries as fundamentally different from us, as other in ways both subtle and obvious. But from space, those borders disappear. You can't see lines on a map from orbit. You can't see walls or fences. You can't tell where one country ends and another begins unless you happen to know geographic features. What you see is one planet, one atmosphere, one interconnected ecosystem. Rivers flow across what we call borders without caring about human divisions. Weather systems move across entire continents, bringing rain to multiple nations, influencing climates regardless of politics. The atmosphere circulates globally, mixing air from every part of the planet. Former NASA astronaut Ron Garan, who spent 178 days in space, experienced a profound shift in how he understood Earth and humanity. He described looking down at the planet and being struck by how fragile it appears, how thin the atmosphere protecting all life seems, how obviously interconnected everything is. He said he couldn't see borders, couldn't see the divisions we create. He only saw one world and one human family sharing it. This realization led him to found an organization called Fragile Oasis, bringing together astronauts who've experienced similar perspective shifts to work on humanitarian and environmental causes. The perspective from space reveals something we sometimes forget on the ground. We're all in this together. Every challenge we face, climate change, poverty, disease, conflict, affects all of us. Earth is a closed system. There's no away. Pollution released in one country eventually spreads globally. Greenhouse gases emitted anywhere affect the climate everywhere. Ocean acidification impacts marine life across all seas. We share one planet, one climate system, one biosphere. What affects one part ultimately affects the whole. This isn't a political statement. It's a simple observation of physical reality, made clearer by seeing Earth from outside. Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield described it this way: when you look at Earth from space, the perspective is profound. You realize that the problems we argue about on the ground are petty and unimportant compared to the fact that we're all sharing this one fragile planet together. There's also the realization of just how rare and precious life might be. Looking out at the cosmos from space, astronauts see vast emptiness, stars separated by light years of void, galaxies scattered across immense distances. Space is mostly empty, cold, hostile to life as we know it. And here we are on Earth, this one planet where life has not just emerged but flourished, creating incredible diversity and complexity and beauty. Based on what we currently know, we could be alone in our cosmic neighborhood, even if life exists elsewhere in the universe. And many scientists think it probably does, given the sheer number of planets. It might be so distant we'll never contact it. It's possible we're the only consciousness in our galactic neighborhood, perhaps even beyond, capable of appreciating the cosmos and asking questions about it. That makes life on Earth precious beyond measure. Every species, every ecosystem, every individual organism is part of something potentially unique in the cosmos. We should protect it. We should value it, not because any particular religion or philosophy says so, but because it's genuinely special, genuinely rare, genuinely irreplaceable. The cosmic perspective also reveals how short human lifespans are compared to cosmic timescales, yet how meaningful those brief spans can be. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. Earth has existed for about 4.5 billion years. Life has existed on Earth for roughly 3.8 billion years. Humans, modern Homo sapiens, have existed for maybe 300,000 years. Recorded history spans only about 5,000 years. Your individual life might span 80 years if you're fortunate. Seen from this perspective, your life is a fleeting instant. You're here, then you're gone, barely a blink in cosmic time. This realization could be depressing, could make life seem meaningless, but many astronauts report the opposite effect. Instead of feeling that life is meaningless because it's short, they feel their time is precious because it's limited. Every moment matters. Every relationship matters. Every choice about how to spend your brief time here matters. You don't have forever, so you should make the time you have meaningful. This is one reason many astronauts return from space and change their lives. Some leave their careers to pursue new passions. Some dedicate themselves to environmental or humanitarian work. Some become artists or teachers trying to share what they've learned and inspire others. Some simply become more present with their families, more appreciative of ordinary moments, more conscious of not wasting the limited time they have. There's also a deep sense of humility that comes from the cosmic perspective. Looking at Earth from space, you realize how small we are. The planet that contains everything we've ever known, all of human history, all our civilizations and conflicts and achievements, is just a tiny sphere in a vast cosmos. The Milky Way contains hundreds of billions of stars, many with their own planets. The observable universe contains hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars. We live on one planet orbiting one star in one galaxy, among hundreds of billions. We're not the center of anything. We're not particularly special in cosmic terms. We're just here, living our lives, doing the best we can on this one small world. But that humility isn't crushing. Many astronauts describe it as liberating. You're not responsible for the whole universe. You're not expected to solve every problem or understand every mystery. You're just a human being on a small planet, doing your small part, living your small life. And that's enough. That's meaningful. The cosmic perspective makes you simultaneously aware of your insignificance in the grand scheme and the significance of how you choose to live your one brief life. Russian cosmonaut Valentin Lebedev, during a difficult period on the Salyut 7 space station in 1982, struggled with isolation and depression, but he also wrote beautifully about seeing Earth from orbit, about the realization that national conflicts seem absurd from space, about feeling connected to all humanity rather than just his country. His journal entries reveal a man wrestling with the psychological challenges of spaceflight while also experiencing profound insights about human unity and the preciousness of our world. The overview effect and cosmic perspective aren't universal cures for conflict or suffering. Astronauts still have to deal with the complexities of life on Earth when they return. Seeing Earth from space doesn't automatically solve geopolitical tensions or economic inequalities or social injustices, but it does provide a framework for thinking about these issues differently. When you've seen Earth as one unified system, it becomes harder to think in purely nationalistic terms. When you've recognized the atmosphere's fragility, it becomes harder to ignore environmental concerns. When you've felt connected to all humanity, it becomes harder to dehumanize people from other countries or cultures. Educational programs around the world are working to share this perspective with young people who will likely never go to space themselves. Virtual reality simulations, immersive educational experiences, and programs that bring astronauts to schools to share their experiences are all aimed at helping more people understand the cosmic perspective. If we can help a new generation see Earth the way astronauts do, as one fragile, beautiful, unified world, maybe they'll make different choices about how to live, how to treat each other, how to care for our shared home. The peaceful nature of the cosmic perspective is one of space exploration's greatest gifts. Not the technology, though that's valuable, not the scientific discoveries, though those are important, but the shift in consciousness, the broadening of perspective, the recognition of our shared humanity and shared destiny. That's what makes space exploration matter. That's what justifies the expense and the risk and the effort. We're not just learning about space. We're learning about ourselves, about what matters, about how we should live. The food of space, a culinary journey beyond Earth. Let's talk about something wonderfully mundane, yet surprisingly fascinating. Eating in space. Food is one of the most grounding, comforting aspects of human life, and NASA has spent decades perfecting the art of making meals in space, not just nutritious, but genuinely enjoyable. The evolution of space food tells a story of gradually bringing the comforts of Earth to the stars. In the very beginning, space food was, let's be honest, not particularly appealing. when Yuri Gagarin became the first human to eat in space on April 12, 1961. His meal consisted of pureed beef and liver paste, squeezed from aluminum tubes like toothpaste. For dessert, he had chocolate sauce, consumed the same way. John Glenn, the first American to eat in space during his 1962 Mercury mission, had applesauce from a tube. These early astronauts were essentially proving that eating and swallowing were even possible in weightlessness. Some scientists had worried that without gravity, the normal swallowing process might not work, but the esophagus uses peristalsis, wave-like muscular contractions, to push food toward the stomach, a process that works regardless of gravity. The astronauts could eat just fine, but eating from tubes was unpleasant. You couldn't see or smell the food. Everything had a similar muscia texture. The astronauts complained, and NASA listened. For the Gemini missions in the mid-1960s, space food improved dramatically. Freeze-dried meals were introduced. Real food, like chicken and vegetables, butterscotch pudding, shrimp cocktail. These meals were prepared on Earth, flash frozen to very low temperatures, then placed in vacuum chambers where the frozen water sublimated directly from ice to vapor, leaving behind dried food that retained much of its original flavor and nutrition. Astronauts rehydrated these meals by injecting cold water from a special water gun into the food packages. It wasn't gourmet cuisine, but it was recognizable food. The Apollo missions brought further improvements. Hot water became available, making rehydrated meals taste significantly better. The spoon bowl was introduced, a plastic container that could be opened so astronauts could eat with a spoon rather than squeezing tubes. This made eating feel more normal, more civilized. Thermostabilized foods in pouches, similar to military MREs but specially formulated for space, were added to the menu. These heat-treated meals could be stored at room temperature for long periods without spoiling. Apollo astronauts enjoyed a wider variety than their predecessors, about 70 different food items to choose from. Then came Skylab in the 1973, America's first space station. Skylab revolutionized space food. The station had a galley, an actual kitchen area with a table where astronauts could gather to eat together. There was a food warmer that could heat meal trays. The variety expanded to about 72 different food items. Astronauts could use regular utensils. Meals became social events, times when the crew came together not just to refuel their bodies, but to share experiences, tell stories, relax together. The psychological value of these shared meals was enormous. Today, aboard the International Space Station, space food has reached a level of sophistication that would amaze those early astronauts squeezing tubes of paste. The ISS menu includes over 200 different food items from the United States, Russia, Japan, and European Space Agency countries. Astronauts select their meals months before launch, choosing from an extensive menu and rating each item on a scale from 1 to 9. Only foods that score 6 or higher make it onto their personal menu. They can supplement the standard menu with preference containers, special items they particularly enjoy, comfort foods that remind them of home. Before every mission, astronauts go through multiple food tasting sessions at NASA's Space Food Systems laboratory at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. They sample items, rate them, discuss what they like and don't like. Dietitians ensure every astronaut's menu provides proper nutrition, roughly 2,500 to 3,000 calories per day, depending on the astronaut's size, gender, and activity level. When doing spacewalks, Astronauts need an extra 500 calories to fuel the physically demanding work. The food provides appropriate amounts of protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals. Special attention is paid to calcium and vitamin D to help combat bone loss, and sodium is limited because it can worsen bone density problems. The food comes in several forms. Freeze-dried meals require add-in water, either cold or hot water, from the station's rehydration station. A water gun injects the precise amount of water needed into the package through a one-way valve. The astronaut massages the package to distribute the water evenly, waits the required time for rehydration, usually about 15 to 30 minutes, then cuts open the package and eats with a spoon. The food sticks to the spoon thanks to surface tension and its slightly thickened consistency. Thermostabilized foods come in sealed pouches or cans, already fully cooked and ready to eat. These can be eaten at room temperature or heated in the food warmer. Russian space food particularly favors cans, while American food tends to use pouches. The variety is impressive. Beef stew, chicken teriyaki, macaroni and cheese, spaghetti with meat sauce, scrambled eggs, breakfast burritos, and much more. Then there are foods that need no preparation. Natural form items like nuts, cookies, crackers, dried fruits, candy, chocolate, and beef jerky. Tortillas are extremely popular aboard the ISS, more so than bread, because tortillas don't create crumbs that could float around and clog equipment or be inhaled. Many astronauts make wraps using tortillas with various fillings: peanut butter and honey, chicken salad, breakfast scrambles. Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield famously demonstrated making a space tortilla sandwich in a video that went viral, showing how you have to carefully control every ingredient to prevent it from floating away. Beverages come as powders sealed in drink pouches: coffee, tea, orange drink, lemonade, various juices. Astronauts inject water into the pouch. Through a valve, shake it to mix, then drink through a straw. Coffee drinkers can add powdered cream and sugar to their personal taste. In 2015, Italian astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti made headlines by enjoying the first authentic espresso in space, brewed using a special IS espresso machine designed to work in microgravity. The Italian Space Agency developed it in cooperation with the coffee company Lavazza, and astronauts report that real espresso is a tremendous morale booster. Fresh foods are delivered periodically by cargo ships: SpaceX Dragon, Northrop Grumman Cygnus, Russian Progress vehicles. These shipments bring fresh fruits and vegetables: apples, oranges, grapefruit, tomatoes, carrots, onions, sometimes even lettuce. Fresh food is a huge treat, but it's perishable. So astronauts eat it within the first few days after a cargo delivery before it spoils. Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield shared his joy at biting into a fresh orange after weeks eating preserved food, describing it as an explosion of flavor and aroma. Condiments are available to add flavor: ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, hot sauce, salt, pepper, and more. Salt and pepper come in liquid form rather than granules. Granules would float around in microgravity. Hot sauce is particularly beloved. Many astronauts report that their sense of taste is somewhat dulled in space. The fluid shift that causes stuffy sinuses also reduces smell, and since smell is crucial to taste, food can seem bland. Spicy, strongly flavored foods help compensate. Shrimp cocktail with its tangy cocktail sauce is one of the most popular items on the ISS menu. It's so prized that astronauts reportedly have used it as a bargaining chip, trading shrimp cocktail for help with chores. International food adds wonderful variety and cultural sharing. Japanese astronauts bring ramen, sushi, miso soup, and yokan, a sweet jelly dessert. French astronauts bring dishes prepared by renowned chefs: duck confit, cassoulet, almond tarts. Russian food includes traditional items like borscht, goulash, and cottage cheese with nuts. Chinese taikonauts aboard the Tiangong space station enjoy kung pao chicken, shredded pork in garlic sauce, and various teas. Korean astronaut Yi So-yeon brought kimchi to space, specially processed to reduce its strong smell in the enclosed environment. Each culture contributes its culinary traditions, and astronauts share with each other, creating truly international dining experiences. Eating in space requires special techniques. Food packaging has Velcro patches so it can be attached to trays or the table, preventing it from floating away. Astronauts use regular forks, knives, and spoons, but the food itself needs to have the right consistency. Liquids must be thick enough that surface tension holds them together. Solid foods need a bit of moisture, so they stick to utensils. Everything is packaged to minimize loose particles. When opening packages, astronauts cut carefully. With scissors, yes, scissors are essential dining equipment in space to avoid sending contents flying. The dining experience aboard the ISS has become remarkably Earth-like. The galley in the Zvezda service module has a table where astronauts can gather for meals. Foot restraints let them anchor themselves in place. Food trays are magnetized to prevent floating. The crew often eats together, sharing a meal at the end of the workday, discussing their activities, enjoying each other's company. Birthdays and holidays are celebrated with special meals. Thanksgiving might feature thermostabilized turkey, cornbread dressing, and cranberry sauce. Christmas might include cookies and candy canes. These traditions maintain a sense of normalcy and connection to Earth. There's something deeply comforting about the attention NASA and other space agencies pay to food quality. It would be easy to focus purely on nutrition, providing efficient but bland fuel for astronaut bodies. Instead, enormous effort goes into making space food enjoyable, varied, and culturally meaningful. This recognizes a fundamental truth. Humans don't eat just for physical sustenance. We eat for pleasure, for comfort, for social connection, for cultural identity. Good food maintains morale during long missions. Familiar tastes remind astronauts of home. Sharing meals builds bonds between crew members from different backgrounds. Some exciting developments are expanding what's possible with space food. Since 2002, the ISS has conducted experiments growing plants in space using systems like the Lada greenhouse and more advanced veggie growth chambers. Astronauts have successfully grown lettuce, radishes, zinnia flowers, and chilies. In 2015, astronauts tasted space-grown red romaine lettuce for the first time. A small crop, but a significant achievement. The flavor was mild and slightly bitter, but eating something grown in space felt profoundly meaningful. More recently, astronauts have enjoyed space-grown red and green chili peppers, adding fresh spice to their meals. Growing food in space serves multiple purposes. It provides fresh produce, which is nutritionally valuable and psychologically uplifting. It offers astronauts a chance to nurture living things, a gentle, calming activity that connects them to Earth's cycles of growth and life. It teaches us how to sustain ourselves, on long missions to Mars, or permanent lunar bases where resupply from Earth will be impractical. Every pepper grown aboard the ISS is a small step toward true self-sufficiency beyond Earth. China's Tiangong space station has taken space cuisine even further. In 2023, Chinese astronauts used a specially designed air fryer to cook food aboard Tiangong. The air fryer includes built-in air purification and a residue collector, allowing safe cooking in the confined, microgravity environment. Astronauts have grilled barbecue chicken wings and steaks, enjoying hot, freshly cooked meals that would have seemed impossible in earlier eras of spaceflight. This represents a remarkable evolution from tubes of paste to actual cooking in space. The care taken with space food reflects a deeper philosophy about human spaceflight. We're not just sending machines and instruments beyond Earth. We're sending people, complex beings with physical needs, emotional needs, cultural identities, and preferences. Making those people comfortable, happy, and well-fed isn't a luxury. It's essential for mission success and for honoring the humanity of those who venture into space on behalf of all of us. Every carefully prepared meal, every birthday cake, every piece of fresh fruit delivered from Earth, every experiment growing plants in orbit, all of it says we value these explorers not just as highly trained professionals, but as human beings deserving of comfort, pleasure, and care. Walking among the stars, the beauty and challenge of spacewalks. There's something almost dreamlike about the idea of floating outside a spacecraft, surrounded by the infinite blackness of space, with nothing but a spacesuit between you and the void. Spacewalks, officially called extravehicular activities or EVAs, represent some of the most dangerous yet profoundly beautiful work astronauts do. And despite the risks and challenges, astronauts describe EVAs as the highlight of their careers, experiences of transcendent beauty and achievement. The first person to perform a spacewalk was Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov on March 18, 1965. Leonov exited the Voskhod 2 capsule through an inflatable airlock and spent 12 minutes and 9 seconds outside, tethered to the spacecraft. It was a pioneering achievement, but it nearly ended in disaster. Leonov's spacesuit ballooned in the vacuum of space, becoming so rigid he couldn't fit back through the airlock hatch. He had to partially depressurize his suit, risking decompression sickness, to squeeze back inside. He succeeded, but it was a close call that demonstrated how dangerous EVAs could be. American astronaut Ed White performed the first U.S. spacewalk just months later on June 3, 1965, during the Gemini 4 mission. White spent 23 minutes outside, using a handheld maneuvering unit to propel himself around. When commanded to come back inside, White famously said it was the saddest moment of his life. He didn't want the experience to end. That sentiment has been echoed by spacewalkers ever since. Despite the danger, despite the physical challenges, despite the years of preparation required, astronauts consistently say spacewalks are the most incredible experience of their careers. Since those first tentative ventures outside spacecraft, over 440 spacewalks have been performed by more than 240 different astronauts and cosmonauts from 10 countries. The longest single spacewalk on record is 9 hours and 6 minutes, completed by Chinese astronauts Kai Shuzhe and Song Ling-dong outside the Tiangong space station on December 17, 2024, breaking a record that had stood since 2001. That previous record, 8 hours and 56 minutes, was set by NASA astronauts James Voss and Susan Helms during a space shuttle mission to the International Space Station. 9 hours is an extraordinarily long time to spend in a spacesuit performing physically demanding work in a hazardous environment. It requires exceptional stamina, focus, and training. Russian cosmonaut Anatoly Solovyev holds the cumulative record, having performed 16 spacewalks, totaling 82 hours and 22 minutes over 4 Mir space station missions between 1990 and 1998. NASA astronaut Michael Lopez Alegria is second with 10 spacewalks totaling 67 hours and 40 minutes. What makes spacewalks so memorable for astronauts? Start with the view. Imagine floating above Earth with nothing between you and the planet except your helmet's visor. No spacecraft walls, no windows, just you hanging in the void, the entire Earth rotating beneath you. Astronauts describe it as overwhelming, impossible to fully process. The colors are incredibly vivid. The black of space is so absolute it's unlike any darkness on Earth. Stars don't twinkle. They shine with steady, brilliant points of light. The sun, unfiltered by atmosphere, blazes with painful intensity. Looking at it directly, even for a moment, could permanently damage your eyes. And Earth from a spacewalk is indescribably beautiful. The thin blue shell of atmosphere glows against the black. Clouds swirl in delicate patterns. Oceans shimmer in shades of deep blue and turquoise. Continents spread below in shades of brown, green, and white. Cities at night sparkle like scattered diamonds. Lightning storms flash silently, too far away to hear thunder. Auroras ripple in curtains of green and red and purple light. Every astronaut who's done an EVA tries to describe the beauty and struggles to find adequate words. It's simply beyond what language can capture. But spacewalks aren't just about the view. There's work to be done. Difficult, precise, important work. Most EVAs involve maintaining or upgrading the spacecraft. Astronauts install new equipment, replace broken components, conduct experiments, perform inspections, attach or detach cargo modules, upgrade electrical systems, fix cooling loops, install cameras, deploy scientific instruments, and countless other tasks. This work requires extreme precision. Components must be handled carefully. Tools must be properly secured. A dropped tool in space becomes potentially dangerous debris, floating away forever. Connections must be perfect. Mistakes can be costly or dangerous. Spacesuits themselves are miniature spacecraft, incredibly sophisticated pieces of engineering. Modern NASA spacesuits, called extravehicular mobility units or EMUs, weigh about 280 pounds fully assembled. The suits are expensive to develop and produce. Estimates for flight-ready suits range from around $12 million per unit to much higher figures when accounting for the extensive research, development, and testing involved over decades. The suit provides oxygen for breathing, removes carbon dioxide exhaled, maintains comfortable temperature and pressure, protects against radiation, shields against micrometeoroids, provides communication systems, and allows mobility for complex tasks. The gloves are particularly impressive pieces of engineering. They must be flexible enough for detailed work, turning bolts, handling tools, manipulating small components, while also pressurized enough to protect against the vacuum, insulated enough against temperature extremes, and durable enough to resist punctures. Astronauts report that after several hours working in the gloves, their hands ache from the constant effort of fighting the suit's pressure to grip and manipulate objects. Fingernails sometimes come off after long EVAs from the mechanical stress. It's demanding work. Preparing for a spacewalk takes hours. Astronauts must pre-breathe pure oxygen for several hours before exiting to prevent decompression sickness. This purges nitrogen from their blood. The spacecraft's normal atmosphere is similar to Earth's, roughly 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, but spacesuits operate at lower pressure with pure oxygen. Moving from one to the other too quickly could cause nitrogen to form bubbles in the blood, like what happens to scuba divers who surface too fast. Pre-breathing prevents this. Astronauts also carefully check every component of their spacesuits multiple times. A small leak, a malfunctioning valve, a loose connection. Any failure could be catastrophic. Everything is verified, tested, re-verified. Only when ground controllers and the crew are completely satisfied does the airlock depressurize. Once outside, astronauts work methodically, following detailed procedures choreographed months in advance. Every movement, every task, every contingency has been practiced repeatedly in NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, a giant swimming pool in Houston containing full-size mock-ups of ISS modules. Astronauts in spacesuits submerged underwater experience something approximating microgravity. They spend hundreds of hours training underwater for each EVA, perfecting their movements, learning to work efficiently in bulky suits. During actual spacewalks, astronauts are always tethered to the station by safety lines. These tethers prevent drifting away and also provide anchor points for positioning themselves at work sites. Astronauts also wear safer devices, simplified aid, for EVA rescue, small backpack units with nitrogen thrusters that can be used for self-rescue if they somehow become untethered. In an emergency, an astronaut could use SAFER to propel back to the station. It's a last resort backup, rarely needed, but always present. Spacewalks from the International Space Station typically involve two astronauts working as a team. They support each other, watch out for each other, help with difficult tasks. One might hold a component steady while the other bolts it in place. One might translate along the station's exterior using handholds while the other manages a bag of tools. They communicate constantly with each other, with crew members inside monitoring their progress, with mission control on the ground. It's a carefully orchestrated ballet of movement and cooperation. Some of the most memorable EVAs have involved emergency repairs. In 2007, during Space Shuttle Discovery's STS-120 mission, a solar array on the ISS was damaged, torn by its own guide wires during repositioning. Astronauts Scott Parazynski and Doug Wheelock performed an unplanned spacewalk to repair the tear. Parazynski, attached to the station's robotic arm, was maneuvered out to the damaged array while the station flew. He worked carefully, using tools to secure the tear, while being mindful of the high voltage running through the array. It was delicate, dangerous work, but they succeeded. In 2013, Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano's spacewalk was cut short when water began leaking into his helmet from the suit's cooling system. The water pooled around his head, making it hard to see, hear, and breathe. This was a life-threatening emergency. If water covered his nose and mouth, he could drown in the vacuum of space. Parmitano remained calm, following procedures to return to the airlock. He and his partner, American astronaut Chris Cassidy, got inside safely. But it was a close call that led to significant changes in spacesuit design and procedures. Even with decades of experience and extensive safety systems, spacewalks remain inherently dangerous. Despite the risks, astronauts return from EVAs, describing feelings of profound peace and accomplishment. There's an incredible sense of presence during a spacewalk. You can't be distracted. You can't think about problems back on Earth. You're completely focused on the task at hand, on your environment, on staying safe. It's enforced mindfulness. And during the quieter moments, when you're waiting for a tool to be handed over, or pausing to rest your aching hands, or transitioning between work sites, you have time to simply exist in that remarkable environment, floating above Earth, surrounded by stars, part of something far larger than yourself. Astronaut Mike Massimino, who performed spacewalks to service the Hubble Space Telescope, described looking down at Earth during a rare moment of stillness during an EVA. The beauty overwhelmed him. He felt connected to everyone and everything on that beautiful planet below. He felt grateful to be alive, to be experiencing something so extraordinary. These moments of transcendence are common during spacewalks. The physical challenges, the mental focus required, the spectacular environment, all combine to create experiences that astronauts remember vividly for the rest of their lives. As of early 2025, NASA astronaut Suni Williams holds the record among women for the most cumulative spacewalk time, with over 60 hours across multiple EVAs. Russian cosmonaut Anatoly Solovyev's 82 hours remains the overall record. These records represent years of training, dozens of hours of actual time in the void, and countless moments of beauty, challenge, fear, and triumph. Looking ahead, spacewalks will become even more important as humans return to the moon and eventually travel to Mars. Lunar spacewalks, moonwalks, present different challenges than orbital EVAs. Gravity, though only 1/6 of Earth's, still affects movement. Dust is a significant problem, getting into everything, potentially damaging equipment. Mars spacewalks will involve even more challenges. Stronger gravity than the moon, a thin atmosphere that's still thick enough to create wind and weather, extreme temperature variations, and months or years of isolation from Earth. New spacesuit designs are being developed for these future missions. NASA's Artemis program is developing suits specifically for lunar exploration, with improved mobility, better dust resistance, and the ability to fit a wider range of body sizes. These suits will allow astronauts to walk, bend, kneel, and work on the lunar surface more easily than Apollo astronauts could in their suits. The goal is to enable longer, more productive EVAs on the moon and eventually on Mars. But no matter how technology improves, spacewalks will likely always retain that combination of danger and transcendent beauty that has characterized them since Alexei Leonov first ventured outside over 60 years ago. Standing on the edge of the infinite, protected only by layers of fabric and technology, surrounded by the cosmos, looking down at the only home humanity has ever known. It's an experience that changes everyone who has it, and through their stories, their photographs, their carefully practiced work, maintaining humanity's outposts in space. These spacewalkers share their awe with all of us, inviting us to appreciate both the beauty and the fragility of our place in the universe. The journey home, returning to gravity's embrace. We've spent considerable time exploring what it's like to live in space, but let's talk about something equally fascinating and profoundly important. Coming home. Returning to Earth after months in microgravity is a remarkable physical and psychological challenge. The human body adapts so thoroughly to weightlessness that readapting to gravity's pull requires time, effort, and specialized rehabilitation. Understanding this process reveals just how dramatically spaceflight changes us and how resilient the human body can be. When astronauts splash down or land after a mission, whether in the ocean off Florida's coast, in the Kazakhstani desert, or anywhere else, they're immediately surrounded by recovery teams. Medical personnel are standing by. Support crews help them out of the cramped spacecraft. And very often, astronauts can't walk on their own. After months in space, simply standing up is difficult. After a 6-month mission, astronauts describe Earth as feeling incredibly heavy, like someone turned up gravity to crushing levels. Think about it this way. In space, your muscles don't have to fight gravity. Your bones don't bear weight. Your heart doesn't have to pump blood upward against gravity's pull. Your inner ear's balance system, which relies partly on detecting the direction of gravity, has nothing to work with. For months, these systems have essentially been on vacation. Coming back to Earth is like waking them all up at once and asking them to immediately perform work they've been avoiding. The first thing many astronauts notice is how heavy their heads feel. Your neck muscles, which have spent months doing essentially nothing in weightlessness, suddenly have to support your head's full weight again. NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogh-Bailey, who returned to Earth in March 2024 after nearly 200 days in space, described her neck being very tired from holding up my head for the first couple of days. She felt wobbly and unsteady. Walking required concentration. European Space Agency astronaut Andreas Mogensen, her crewmate on that mission, said it was almost impossible to walk in a straight line, with his eyes closed. This balance difficulty relates to how the vestibular system works. Your inner ear contains fluid-filled chambers with tiny hair cells that detect movement and orientation. On Earth, gravity pulls the fluid in specific directions, and your brain interprets these signals to understand which way is up. But in space, without gravity, these signals disappear. Your brain learns to ignore the vestibular system and rely almost entirely on vision for orientation. When you return to Earth, your brain has to relearn how to use inner ear signals. Until that happens, balance is compromised. Simple tasks like standing with eyes closed or walking without looking become surprisingly difficult. NASA astronaut Frank Rubio, who holds the record for the longest single U.S. spaceflight at 371 days, described his body adjusting to gravity relatively quickly overall, though his feet and lower back were particularly sore. A year without bearing any weight left those areas unprepared for suddenly supporting his full body mass again. Thanks to religiously following his exercise regimen during the mission, 2 hours daily on the station's treadmill, resistance machines, and cycle ergometer, Rubio felt mostly recovered within a couple of weeks. But without that consistent exercise, recovery would have taken much longer. The cardiovascular system also requires readjustment. In space, your heart doesn't work as hard because fluids naturally equalize throughout your body without gravity pulling blood downward. When astronauts first stand up on Earth after landing, blood suddenly rushes toward their feet. Their heart, now somewhat deconditioned from months of easier work, has to quickly respond to pump that blood back up to the brain. Some astronauts experience orthostatic hypotension, a drop in blood pressure when standing, which can cause dizziness or even fainting. This is why recovery teams have astronauts sit or lie down initially, giving their cardiovascular systems time to readjust gradually. Muscles, especially in the legs and core, have atrophied during months without use. Astronauts can lose up to 20% of their muscle mass on long missions despite extensive exercise. Those first days back on Earth, simple movements feel exhausting. Walking upstairs is a serious workout. Getting up from a sitting position takes effort. Astronauts describe feeling like they're moving through molasses, like their limbs are made of lead. NASA astronaut Matt Dominic, who returned in October 2024 after 235 days aboard the ISS, found sitting on hard surfaces uncomfortable at first. His NASA colleague, Jeanette Epps, described immediately feeling Earth's heaviness. These sensations are normal and expected. The body remembers Earth, but it takes time for all systems to fully re-engage. Recovery follows a carefully structured program. Starting the day after landing, astronauts begin 2 hours of daily physical therapy and rehabilitation, continuing for 6 weeks. The program is progressive, starting gently and gradually increasing in intensity. Athletic trainers and physical therapists specialize in post-space flight rehabilitation, understanding exactly what astronauts need at each stage of recovery. Early exercises focus on basic functions: standing without tipping over, walking forward and backward, turning around obstacles, simple strength, and balance movements. It's humbling for these highly capable people to struggle with tasks that were effortless before space flight. But rehabilitation specialists approach it with encouragement and understanding, tracking progress, celebrating improvements, supporting astronauts through the frustration of temporary limitations. As recovery progresses, exercises become more demanding. Resistance training to rebuild muscle, cardiovascular work to recondition the heart, balance exercises to retrain the vestibular system, and neuromuscular coordination. Astronauts essentially relearn how their bodies work under gravity's influence. The brain has to recalibrate everything: how much effort it takes to lift an arm, how hard to push when walking, how to maintain balance when turning your head. Bone density takes longer to recover. Those months of 1 to 2% monthly loss need to be regained. Research suggests that full bone density recovery can take up to 3 years after a long duration mission. Astronauts continue monitoring bone health long after returning to Earth, sometimes taking calcium and vitamin D supplements, following bone-building exercise programs, undergoing periodic bone density scans to track progress. Psychologically, returning to Earth brings its own challenges. Many astronauts describe mild depression or emotional difficulty in the weeks after landing. They've left behind an extraordinary experience and an environment where they felt purposeful, focused, connected to something meaningful. Suddenly, they're back in ordinary life, dealing with traffic, bills, household chores, all the mundane concerns that seemed so unimportant from orbit. The contrast can be jarring. There's also a strange bittersweetness to recovery itself. NASA astronaut Suni Williams noted that while she appreciates her fast-twitch muscles returning and her inner ear readjusting within 24 to 48 hours, these physical improvements are also a little bit sad because they mean the spaceflight came to an end. Regaining your Earth body means losing your space body. Recovery is necessary, but it signals the conclusion of an extraordinary chapter. Most astronauts adjust psychologically within a few weeks or months. They reconnect with family and friends. They appreciate Earth's abundance, the wind on their face, rain, the smell of grass, the taste of fresh food, the simple joy of gravity letting you set something down and having it stay there. Many continue speaking publicly about their experiences, sharing the overview effect, and inspiring others. Many work with NASA's astronaut office, mentoring new astronauts, serving as capcoms, spacecraft communicators during missions, or contributing to future mission planning. They find purpose in passing on what they've learned. Some astronauts struggle more with readjustment. Russian cosmonaut Valentin Lebedev, after his difficult 211-day mission to Salyut 7 in 1982, experienced significant psychological challenges upon returning. His journal reveals a man wrestling with the psychological weight of isolation and the disorientation of coming back to normal life. These challenges are real and taken seriously by space agencies, which provide psychological support both during missions and after landing. The speed of recovery varies considerably among individuals. NASA astronaut Laurel O'Hara, after 204 days in space, felt almost completely normal within a week of landing in April 2024. Others take longer. Age, mission duration, individual physiology, exercise compliance during the mission, and probably factors we don't yet fully understand all affect recovery timelines. NASA's Human Research Program continuously studies these variations, seeking ways to speed recovery and minimize the challenges of readjustment. One particularly interesting finding is how quickly the body remembers Earth despite months away. Your muscles may be weak, your balance may be off, your cardiovascular system may need reconditioning, but the underlying patterns are still there. It's not like learning to walk for the first time as a baby. It's reactivating systems that were temporarily dormant. As NASA astronaut Nicole Oyers noted, the brain quickly adapts to weightlessness. Then, within days of being back on Earth, it remembers again. It's amazing how fast the body readjusts. This adaptability is encouraging as we plan longer missions to Mars. A Mars mission might last 2 to 3 years total, 6 to 9 months traveling to Mars, potentially a year or more on the surface, then 6 to 9 months returning to Earth. That's far longer than any current ISS mission. Will astronauts be able to readapt after such extended time, away from Earth gravity? Research on astronauts returning from year-long missions suggests the answer is yes, though recovery will take longer and require more intensive rehabilitation. There's something both humbling and inspiring about watching astronauts return to Earth. These are extraordinary people who've done extraordinary things. They've lived in space, conducted groundbreaking research, performed complex repairs during spacewalks, represented humanity's presence beyond Earth, and then they come back and have to relearn how to walk steadily, how to stand without wobbling, how to pick up a glass of water without misjudging its weight. It's a powerful reminder that we're creatures evolved for Earth's environment. We can adapt to space, but Earth is our natural home. Yet we do adapt. We can live in space for months or even a year. We can come back. We can recover, rebuilding strength, regaining balance, returning to full function. And some astronauts go back again, flying multiple missions, spending cumulative years in space over their careers. Russian cosmonaut Gennady Padalka has spent more than 878 cumulative days in space across 5 missions, Peggy Whitson accumulated 665 days over 3 missions, the most for any American and for any woman. They recovered each time and chose to go back. This resilience speaks to both human adaptability and our deep drive to explore. Yes, coming back is hard. Yes, recovery takes effort, but the experience is worth it. The knowledge gained is valuable. The perspective achieved is transformative. And so we keep going, keep adapting, keep learning how to thrive in environments far from our evolutionary home. Each astronaut who returns, who goes through the challenging recovery process, who shares their experiences, who then perhaps trains for another mission, demonstrates that humans can indeed become a spacefaring species, not without effort, not without challenges, but definitely possible. Looking forward to Artemis missions and eventual Mars exploration, understanding recovery will become even more critical. Astronauts returning from the moon will need to readapt to full Earth gravity after weeks in 1/6 gravity. Mars explorers returning after years in 1/3 gravity will face perhaps the longest readjustment process yet. Research continues on countermeasures, better exercise equipment, pharmaceutical interventions, artificial gravity systems for spacecraft, anything that might reduce the challenges of readaptation. But whatever countermeasures we develop, the fundamental challenge will remain. Earth is heavy. Our bodies are designed for it, but months or years away cause us to forget. Coming home means remembering, relearning, readapting. It's hard work, it's humbling work, but it's also deeply human work. The work of returning from an extraordinary journey, carrying new knowledge and perspective, ready to share what you've learned with those who stayed behind. And in that way, every astronaut who makes the journey home successfully is not just recovering from spaceflight, but completing a cycle: departure, transformation, return. They left as explorers. They return as emissaries from the stars, bearing gifts of knowledge and inspiration for all of us bound to Earth's surface. Sleeping among the stars, rest and dreams beyond Earth. There's something wonderfully ordinary yet extraordinary about sleeping in space. Humans need sleep regardless of where we are: on Earth, aboard aircraft, in submarines, or orbiting 250 miles above the planet. Sleep is when our bodies repair, our memories consolidate, our minds process the day's experiences. In space, sleep becomes both a practical necessity and a unique, peaceful experience, unlike anything possible on Earth. The International Space Station doesn't have traditional bedrooms. Instead, astronauts have small sleeping quarters called crew quarters, essentially phone booth-sized compartments with a sleeping bag attached to the wall, storage for personal items, a laptop, and just enough room to float comfortably. These quarters provide privacy, a precious commodity on a space station where you're never truly alone. Astronauts can close the door, dim the lights, and create a small sanctuary of personal space. Sleeping bags in space don't need to be particularly warm or padded. There's no hard surface pressing against your body, no need for a mattress to distribute weight. The sleeping bag simply keeps you from floating around and provides a comfortable enclosed space. Many astronauts tuck their arms inside, while others prefer leaving their arms out, floating freely. Some astronauts secure their sleeping bags horizontally, others vertically. In microgravity, there's no up or down, so orientation is purely personal preference. One of the most commonly reported aspects of space sleep is how comfortable it is once you adapt to it. Without gravity compressing your spine, there are no pressure points, no need to shift position to prevent numbness or pain. Your body simply floats in perfect equilibrium. Some astronauts describe it as floating on a cloud or suspended in warm water. Others say it's the most comfortable sleep they've ever experienced. After an initial adjustment period where the unfamiliarity makes sleep difficult, many astronauts sleep better in space than they did on Earth. But sleep in space also presents unique challenges. The ISS orbits Earth every 90 minutes, meaning astronauts experience a sunrise and sunset every 45 minutes. If windows weren't covered, sleep would be impossible, constantly shifting from brilliant sunlight to darkness every 3/4 of an hour. To maintain a normal sleep schedule, astronauts follow Greenwich Mean Time, going to bed and waking at regular times, regardless of whether it's day or night outside. Window shades block the constantly changing light. Crew quarters have adjustable lighting to simulate a normal day-night cycle. Some astronauts struggle with the fluid shift that causes nasal congestion. Sleeping with a stuffy head isn't comfortable. Air circulation can also be problematic. On Earth, warm air you exhale rises due to convection, and cool, fresh air replaces it. In microgravity, warm exhaled air can form a bubble around your head, creating a carbon dioxide-rich environment that makes sleep uncomfortable and potentially dangerous. The ISS's ventilation system moves air throughout the station, preventing CO2 buildup, but astronauts sometimes position themselves near vents to ensure good airflow while sleeping. Noise is another consideration. The space station is not silent. Fans hum constantly, ensuring air circulation. Equipment whirs and beeps. Other crew members move about during their work shifts. These sounds can disturb sleep. Many astronauts use earplugs or sleep with white noise from fans to mask other sounds. Some prefer complete silence and use noise-canceling headphones. Each astronaut develops personal preferences for optimizing their sleep environment. Do astronauts dream in space? Absolutely. Studies suggest astronauts dream just as much, and possibly more, than they do on Earth. Dreams in space can be particularly vivid. Some astronauts report increased dream recall. The content varies. Some astronauts dream about flying, an appropriate dream when you're literally floating. Others dream about Earth, family, places they miss. Some dreams involve the work they're doing aboard the station. Occasionally, astronauts experience dreams where they're still on Earth and gravity suddenly asserts itself, which can be disorienting when they wake up floating. Sleep duration is carefully monitored. NASA aims for astronauts to get 8.5 hours of sleep per 24-hour period. Reality often falls short. Workload, excitement, the sheer novelty of being in space, schedule demands, and the challenges of adapting to the environment can reduce sleep time, particularly early in a mission. Studies suggest astronauts often average closer to 6 hours per night, which isn't ideal for long-term health and performance. NASA continues working to improve astronaut sleep quality through better schedules, improved crew quarters design, and education about sleep hygiene. Interestingly, some astronauts report needing less sleep in space than on Earth, at least initially. The excitement, the interesting work, the unique environment, all provide energy. But over longer missions, fatigue accumulates if sleep deficits persist. Good. Sleep is essential for cognitive function, emotional stability, immune system health, and physical recovery. Mission controllers take sleep seriously, protecting sleep periods, reducing unnecessary disturbances, and monitoring astronaut fatigue levels. Napping is permitted and sometimes encouraged, particularly before or after demanding events like spacewalks or cargo spacecraft dockings. A 20 to 30-minute nap can provide significant refreshment without causing grogginess. Astronauts often float in their sleeping bags for power naps, or simply float freely in a quiet corner of the station, closing their eyes and drifting off for a few minutes of restorative rest. The peaceful nature of sleep in space, once you've adapted, is something astronauts frequently mention. The complete absence of pressure on your body, the gentle floating sensation, the quiet when wearing earplugs, the privacy of your small crew. Quarter, it creates an environment conducive to deep relaxation. There's something almost womb-like about it, enclosed and protected, suspended weightlessly, allowed to simply exist without the constant pull of gravity reminding you of your physical form. Some astronauts practice meditation or relaxation techniques before sleep. The environment lends itself well to mindfulness practices, floating in darkness, focusing on breathing, letting go of thoughts. It's easier when your body isn't sending constant signals about discomfort or pressure points. A few astronauts have described achieving particularly deep meditative states in space, possibly because the reduced sensory input from gravity allows the mind to settle more completely. Voices across the void. Staying connected to home communication is lifeblood for astronauts in space. Despite being in one of the most extreme and isolated environments humans have ever inhabited, modern astronauts are remarkably connected to Earth. They can video call family members, send emails, browse limited internet content, receive news updates, and even use social media. This connectivity is crucial for psychological well-being during long missions. The International Space Station has multiple communication systems. Direct communication with mission control happens through dedicated radio links. The station has continuous coverage from NASA's network of ground stations and relay satellites, though there are occasional brief gaps when the station passes over parts of Earth without coverage. For personal communications, astronauts have access to Internet Protocol phone systems that work much like making phone calls on Earth, plus email and limited web browsing through NASA's network. Video calls with family are scheduled regularly, typically once a week or more, depending on the crew members' preferences and schedules. These calls are private, giving astronauts time to see loved ones' faces, hear their voices, share experiences, and maintain bonds despite the distance. For astronauts with children, these calls are particularly precious. Seeing your kids grow and change over 6 months of mission, missing birthdays and holidays, watching them through a video screen rather than holding them. It's one of the hardest aspects of spaceflight. Many astronauts have described the emotional difficulty of these family calls. You want to be present for your family's daily life, but you're fundamentally absent. You can't help with homework, attend school events, fix things around the house, share meals, or provide physical comfort when they're sad or hurt. You can only watch and listen and offer what support distance allows. Some astronauts find the calls help immensely, maintaining connection and love across the void. Others find them painful, highlighting what they're missing. Most experience both feelings simultaneously. NASA and other space agencies provide psychological support to help crew members and their families navigate these challenges. Training includes discussing how to maintain relationships during long separations. Family members receive support and can communicate with psychological professionals if they're struggling. The agencies understand that supporting astronaut families is essential for supporting the astronauts themselves. Beyond family calls, email provides a constant, less formal connection to Earth. Astronauts can email friends, respond to messages from schools or public outreach requests, communicate with colleagues about experiments or technical issues. Email doesn't require synchronized timing across time zones or matched schedules. Astronauts can read and respond when convenient. Many astronauts report checking email multiple times daily, appreciating the connection to ordinary life it provides. Social media has become increasingly important for astronaut communications. Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield became famous for his Twitter posts and YouTube videos from the ISS, sharing stunning photographs, explaining daily life in orbit, demonstrating scientific principles, and even recording a music video of David Bowie's Space Oddity that became an internet sensation. His enthusiastic sharing brought the space station experience to millions of people worldwide and demonstrated how social media can build public engagement with space exploration. Many astronauts now maintain active social media presences during their missions. They post photographs of Earth, short videos explaining experiments, messages about their experiences. This serves multiple purposes. It helps astronauts feel connected to the broader human community. It allows them to share the awe they experience with people on Earth. It builds public support for space exploration, and it creates a record of their journey that they and others can revisit for years afterward. NASA reviews social media posts before they're published to ensure they don't accidentally reveal sensitive information or violate any policies. But the process is usually quick, and astronauts have considerable freedom in what they share. The result is an authentic, personal view of life in space that would have been impossible in earlier eras when astronaut communications were tightly controlled and filtered through official channels. Receiving packages from Earth is another form of connection. Cargo spacecraft bring fresh food, new equipment, experiment materials, and personal items requested by crew members. These care packages might include favorite snacks, books, letters from family, small comfort items that remind astronauts of home. Opening a package from Earth is like receiving a hug across the void. Even small things, a favorite candy bar, a handwritten note, a photo, carry enormous emotional weight when you're so far from home. Astronauts can also participate in events happening on Earth through remote connections. They've done interviews with journalists, spoken to students in classrooms, participated in conferences, even thrown ceremonial first pitches at baseball games by video. These connections remind astronauts they're still part of Earth's life, not completely separated from it. The communication delay to the moon will be about 2.5 seconds round trip, barely noticeable, though it will make conversations slightly awkward. But for Mars missions, communication becomes much more challenging. At its closest, Mars is about 4 light minutes from Earth. At its farthest, that extends to over 20 light minutes. A simple question and answer could take 40 minutes or more. Real-time conversation becomes impossible. Astronauts will send messages knowing they won't receive responses for many minutes or even hours. This isolation will be profound. one of the greatest psychological challenges of Mars exploration. Researchers are studying how to help astronauts cope with communication delays and reduced contact with Earth. Recorded video messages from family, extensive media libraries, opportunities for creative expression, strong bonds with fellow crew members, and psychological support techniques will all be important. The experience of ISS astronauts who maintain connection despite physical distance provides valuable lessons. But Mars will be different, more isolated, more delayed, more dependent on the immediate crew for all social and emotional support. Despite these coming challenges, the fundamental insight remains. Humans need connection. We're social beings. Isolation damages us psychologically. Maintaining bonds with loved ones, feeling part of a larger community, sharing experiences, and receiving support. These aren't luxuries for astronauts. They're necessities. Space agencies have learned this through decades of experience, and they prioritize communication and connection accordingly. The peaceful aspect of space communication is subtle but real. Knowing you can reach out to loved ones, that you're not truly alone despite the vast distance, provides comfort. Writing emails while floating at a window overlooking Earth, video calling your family while the planet rotates beneath you, sharing a photograph of an aurora with millions of people on social media. These moments of connection create peace. You're part of something larger. You're loved and remembered. You're sharing the extraordinary experience of space flight with people who care about you and about the mission you're undertaking. That connection, maintained through invisible signals across the void, bridges the gap between Earth and orbit, between home and the stars. Time flows differently. The rhythm of life in orbit, time becomes a curious thing in space. On Earth, we mark time by natural rhythms, sunrise and sunset, seasons changing, the moon's phases, the stars' slow wheel across the night sky. These cycles have governed human life for millennia, shaping when we sleep and wake, when we plant and harvest, when we celebrate and rest. But aboard the International Space Station orbiting Earth, every 90 minutes, these ancient rhythms disappear. Time must be artificially constructed, maintained through discipline and routine, creating structure where the environment offers none. Every 45 minutes, the station transitions from brilliant daylight to complete darkness and back again. If astronauts lived by these natural cycles, they'd experience 16 days every 24 hours, an impossible rhythm for human biology. Instead, the ISS follows Greenwich Mean Time, maintaining a 24-hour schedule that aligns with no particular location on Earth, but provides the circadian consistency humans need. Clocks aboard the station tick forward in familiar increments, creating the illusion of normal time, even as the sun flashes past the windows in a rapid, disorienting cycle. This disconnection from Earth's natural day creates interesting perceptual effects. Many astronauts report that time feels simultaneously faster and slower in space. Days blur together. One becomes much like another when you're following the same routine in the same environment, without the variety that comes from weather changes, seasonal shifts, or even just traveling to different locations. Individual days can feel indistinguishable. Weeks pass quickly. You look at the calendar and realize it's been a month, then 2 months, then 3, and it feels like barely any time has passed at all. Yet simultaneously, moments can feel stretched and expanded. When you're floating at the cupola windows, watching Earth slide by beneath you, completely absorbed in the beauty. Minutes can feel like hours. Time takes on a meditative quality. You exist purely in the present moment, awareness filling with the vista before you, the slow rotation of the planet, the delicate play of light on clouds and oceans. These moments are timeless in the truest sense, not rushed, not anxious about future or past, just pure present experience. Work schedules aboard the ISS are carefully planned down to 5-minute increments. Every task has an allocated time. Exercise from 8 to 10 ska. Experiment work from 10 Mai to 12 4. Lunch at 12 4. Maintenance from 1 to 3 var. And so on throughout the day. This strict scheduling is necessary given how much work needs to be accomplished and how carefully resources like astronaut time must be allocated. But it also provides structure that helps astronauts maintain a sense of time's passage. Without this structure, time could easily become formless in the station's unchanging environment. Every room looks the same today as yesterday. The view out the windows cycles through the same regions of Earth every orbit, repeating familiar patterns. The background hum of ventilation fans is constant. Only the work schedule creates distinction between 1 hour and the next, one day and another. Astronauts mark time through rituals and traditions too. Weekly conference calls with mission control. Movie night on Friday evenings, breakfast together on Sunday mornings. These recurring events create weekly rhythms, punctuating the flow of days with anticipated moments. Birthdays and holidays provide monthly and yearly markers. Even small personal rituals, an evening cup of tea while looking at Earth, morning exercise, while listening to a favorite playlist, nightly journal entries, help maintain temporal awareness. Interestingly, many astronauts report that time feels more valuable in space. Earth days can feel squandered on trivial concerns, hours lost to distraction or mindless activity. But in space, with limited time aloft and so much to accomplish, every hour matters. Astronauts become acutely aware of how they're spending their time. They prioritize what's truly important: meaningful work, connection with crewmates, appreciating extraordinary moments, taking care of their health. There's no time to waste on things that don't matter. This heightened awareness of time's value often persists after astronauts return to Earth. They report being more intentional about how they spend their days, more mindful of whether activities align with their values, more willing to say no to things that don't matter and yes to things that do. The perspective gained from living, where time flows, so strangely stays with them, informing how they approach the rest of their lives. For long-duration missions, time can become psychologically challenging around the halfway point. Astronauts have completed months of their mission, but still have months remaining. The excitement of arrival has faded. The anticipation of going home isn't yet strong enough to provide motivation. Days can feel long and tedious during this middle period. Mission planners are aware of this phenomenon and try to schedule particularly interesting activities or opportunities for connection with Earth during these mid-mission months to help maintain morale and engagement. The relativity of time takes on literal meaning in space, though the effects are too small for humans to notice directly. Einstein's theory of relativity predicts that time passes slightly faster in orbit than on Earth's surface due to weaker gravitational field and slightly slower due to orbital velocity. The two effects almost cancel out, but atomic clocks aboard the ISS have measured the tiny difference. Astronauts age microseconds less over a 6-month mission than they would on Earth. It's an infinitesimal amount, but it demonstrates that time truly is not absolute. It flows at different rates depending on gravity and velocity. Russian cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev accumulated over 803 days in space across 6 missions between 1988 and 2005, holding the world record for cumulative time in space for a decade until 2015. Due to relativistic time dilation, the slowing of clocks at high velocities, he experienced approximately 0.02 seconds less time than he would have on Earth. This makes him one of the most time-traveled humans, though the difference is far too small to notice without atomic clocks measuring the effect. These tiny relativistic effects become more significant for potential future missions. Astronauts traveling to Mars at high velocity could experience measurably less time than people on Earth, possibly several minutes less over a multi-year mission. For theoretical interstellar journeys at significant fractions of light speed, time dilation becomes dramatic. Astronauts could age years while decades pass on Earth. Time itself becomes relative, personal, dependent on your frame of reference. But for current space missions, the subjective experience of time matters more than relativistic physics. How time feels to astronauts shapes their psychological well-being, their productivity, their satisfaction with the mission. And overwhelmingly, astronauts report that time in space, despite its strange qualities, ultimately feels well spent. They're doing meaningful work. They're experiencing extraordinary things. They're living fully in each moment, whether working intensely on demanding tasks or floating peacefully while watching Earth rotate beneath them. There's a meditative quality to how astronauts must relate to time and space. They can't rush the mission's duration. 6 months is 6 months, regardless of how quickly or slowly it feels. They must be present with whatever each moment brings. Difficult work, routine maintenance, rare free time, challenging interpersonal moments, transcendent views, fighting against time's flow, wishing it would pass faster or slower, creates suffering. Accepting it, working within it, finding meaning and peace in whatever the present moment contains, that creates contentment. This lesson about time transfers back to Earth life. We can't control time's passage. Days will come and go whether we're ready or not. We can resist this reality, constantly wishing we had more time, or we're at a different point in life. Or we can accept time's flow and focus on how we're using the time we have. Are we present? Are we doing what matters? Are we appreciating what's around us? The astronaut's relationship with time in space models a healthier relationship with time on Earth. Not fighting it, not wasting it, but honoring it, using it well, being fully alive in whatever moment we currently inhabit. Closing. Where we go from here, we've journeyed far tonight, exploring the peaceful, transformative, awe-inspiring aspects of space travel. We've learned about astronauts who float among the stars, who watch 16 sunrises every day, who grow taller in microgravity, who experience the overview effect, and return to Earth forever changed. We've explored life aboard the International Space Station, the gentle adaptations your body makes to living without gravity, the psychological resilience required for months in orbit, and the rewarding nature of that experience. We've looked ahead to Artemis missions and the return to the moon, to the long-term vision of living and working beyond Earth. But what does all of this mean for you? You might never go to space. Statistically, very few people ever will. Does any of this matter if it's not something you'll personally experience? The answer is yes, absolutely. Space exploration matters for everyone because it changes how we see ourselves and our world. The astronauts who journey beyond Earth come back and share what they have learned. They write books, give talks, create art, work on causes they care about, all inspired by their time in orbit. Their transformed perspectives ripple outward, influencing how we think about our planet, our relationships with each other, our responsibility to future generations. You don't have to go to space to adopt a cosmic perspective. You can look at images of Earth from orbit and feel some of what astronauts feel. You can think about the fact that national borders are human constructs, invisible from space, and ask yourself whether they should determine how you treat people from other countries. You can recognize the atmosphere's fragility and consider how your choices impact climate and environment. You can appreciate how rare and precious life might be in the cosmos and let that appreciation guide how you care for the living things around you. You can practice being present, mindful, grateful for ordinary moments. You can recognize that your life is brief in cosmic terms, but profoundly meaningful in human terms. You can choose to spend your time on things that matter: relationships, creativity, helping others, learning, growing, appreciating beauty. You can cultivate wonder, looking up at stars on clear nights and remembering that you're part of something vast and ancient and ongoing. Space exploration also reminds us that humans can accomplish extraordinary things when we work together. The International Space Station represents cooperation among nations that have historically been adversaries. Astronauts and cosmonauts from different countries, cultures, and political systems live and work together peacefully, supporting each other, forming friendships that transcend the conflicts happening on Earth below. If we can cooperate that effectively in the hostile environment of space, surely we can find ways to cooperate better on Earth, where conditions are far more favorable. The technologies developed for space exploration have applications here on Earth: medical imaging, water purification, improved materials, better batteries, advanced robotics. All have benefited from space research. The knowledge gained from studying Earth from orbit helps us understand climate, weather, ocean currents, ecosystem health. Space exploration isn't separate from life on Earth. It enhances life on Earth, providing tools and knowledge and perspectives that make our world better. Looking ahead, the future of human space exploration is bright. We're returning to the moon. We're planning for Mars. Private companies are joining governmental space agencies, increasing capabilities and opportunities. The cost of access to space is decreasing. More people from more countries will have chances to participate in space exploration. The astronaut corps is becoming more diverse, more representative of humanity's full spectrum. Space is for everyone, and that vision is slowly becoming reality. But the ultimate value of space exploration might be something simpler and more profound than new technologies or scientific discoveries. It might be the sense of peace and unity it fosters. When you look at Earth from space, you see one world. When you recognize your place in the cosmos, you feel connected to something larger than yourself. When you appreciate life's rarity and preciousness, you want to protect and cherish it. These aren't abstract philosophical ideas. They're practical guides for how to live well, how to treat others, how to care for our shared home. Space travel teaches us that difficulty and peace can coexist. The challenges astronauts face are real and significant. Living in space is hard, but astronauts consistently describe the experience as peaceful, meaningful, transformative. They find calm in the midst of challenge. They find purpose in the difficulty. They thrive not despite the obstacles, but partly because of them. That's a lesson applicable to all of us on Earth. Life is hard, challenges are real, but we can find peace and meaning even in difficult circumstances if we maintain perspective, if we focus on what matters, if we appreciate the beauty and preciousness of existence, the silence of space, the beauty of Earth seen from orbit, the profound shifts in perspective that astronauts experience, the international cooperation aboard the ISS, the exciting missions planned for coming years. All of these things remind us that we live in an incredible time. We're part of the generation witnessing humanity become a spacefaring species. We're privileged to see this transformation unfold, to watch as dreams of living and working beyond Earth become reality, to know that the future holds possibilities our ancestors could barely imagine. So tonight, after you finish listening to this, step outside if the weather permits. Look up at the stars. Find the moon if it's visible. Remember that humans are up there right now, floating in the International Space Station, looking down at our world, experiencing the overview effect, living the dream of space exploration. Think about the fact that you're looking at the same stars astronauts see from orbit, that we're all under the same sky, sharing this one precious planet floating in infinite space. Feel the peace that comes from recognizing your place in the cosmos. You're part of something vast and beautiful and ancient. You're connected to every other person on Earth by the simple fact that we share this world, this atmosphere, this moment in cosmic history. You have a limited time here, but that time is yours to fill with meaning, with relationships, with appreciation, with wonder, with care for this fragile planet and the life it harbors. Space exploration isn't just about the final frontier. It's about understanding ourselves, about learning to live peacefully and sustainably, about expanding human civilization while honoring our origins, about dreaming of the possible and then making those dreams real. It's about the profound calm that comes from seeing Earth as a unified, beautiful, precious home. It's about the deep satisfaction of working towards something larger than yourself, something that will benefit future generations, something that extends human presence and understanding beyond the boundaries of our birthplace. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the peaceful, inspiring world of space travel. If you enjoyed this deep exploration, please consider liking and subscribing to help the channel grow. And remember, whenever you need to find calm, to gain perspective, to remember what matters, look up. The stars are always there, silent and beautiful, reminding us that we're part of something vast and wonderful and ongoing. The cosmos calls to us, not with urgency, but with patient invitation, offering perspective and peace to all who take the time to look and wonder. Sleep well tonight, knowing that among the stars, humans are living and working and thriving, proving that we can adapt to new environments, overcome challenges, find beauty in unexpected places, and carry the best of humanity wherever we go. And perhaps someday, if fortune permits and your dreams align with this possibility, you too might float among those stars, looking down at Earth, experiencing for yourself the profound peace and transformative wonder of space travel. Until then, carry the cosmic perspective with you. Let it guide your choices. Let it remind you of what truly matters. And let it bring you the peace and clarity that comes from knowing your place in this vast, beautiful, interconnected universe we all share. Good night.